Welcome, everyone, to Mondays with Michael. So good to be with you. A warm welcome to all. Happy Monday on this beautiful March 9th, and it is good to be with you. This is an offering of the Gaeta Institute for Holistic Health Education. Our motto here is Nature First, Drugs Last, and to that end, we offer patient education, public education, practitioner training, and patient care in the Gaeta Clinic for Chinese and Functional Medicine. So, a warm welcome to everybody, whatever platform you're viewing us on. It's great to be with you. Thanks for joining us. We have a wonderful show for you today and a wonderful guest who I'm really delighted to get into conversation with. And our motto here is Nature First, Drugs Last. That means that nothing wrong with pharma drugs. They're just massively overused, especially in the U.S. And we're going to be talking a little bit about that today with our ultra knowledgeable guest on the subject of pharma drugs. But there's a natural solution, at least 95% of the time, for anything folks might be considering taking a pharmaceutical product for. And so that's the nature first, drugs last philosophy. So a warm welcome to show number 306. And let's see, I think, yeah, this is actually, it's going to be next week, is going to be our 6th anniversary. We started the show on March 18th, 2020, early in the COVID pandemic slash scamdemic. And we've been going ever since. So I'm so glad there's just been ongoing interest in this subject of our two subjects of natural health and health freedom. So just a couple of announcements. I'll give you these links in the chat, but I had a wonderful conversation on the Medical Doctors for COVID Ethics International class call, and that Dr. Schooler is part of that group for some time. And I'll give you that link. That was a great conversation that just happened last month, as
Mhm.
well as doing another show for Children's Health Defense. I have another one coming up, my fourth appearance with Dr. Brian Hooker. We're recording that soon, and he'll be on the show soon as well. So I'll give you that link too. But that was a great, you just go to CHD-TV and or children'shealthdefense.org to listen to that. And made my fourth appearance in Dr. McCullough's podcast, the wonderful the courageous cardiologist, as I call him. And that is on at thefocalpoints.com. And you can see all four shows on his channel there. Today is the last class. Oh, actually, no, I'm sorry. I think no, yeah, actually, we did finish this class. So, no, I think there might be one more class coming up this week. I think today is the last class, Why We Can't Sleep, with Dustin Strong and myself. Feel free to join us. Just go to michaelgaeta.com and click on courses. As always, if you're on our watch page at michaelgaeta.com/watch or in our Zoom chat, we'd love to have your questions, whatever questions you have for myself or our guest, Dr. Schooler. We'd love to hear from you. We'll answer as many questions as we can. If you're on any of the other 8 or 9 streaming platforms and pages that we're on, please also check in. We won't be able to take questions there, but we'd love to hear from you on whatever page you're on. Anything you'd like to share with the group, updates, articles, videos, blogs, anything that you want to share with the group related to our subjects of natural health and health freedom. We'd love to hear from you. It's great to have the community come together like this once a week and share important ideas together. And that's what we're going to do today. So really my honor to welcome for the first time, not first time, she's been attending regularly, but the first time as a guest. Really delighted to have today's guest on with us. And I'm going to introduce her now in a moment. But this is a wonderful colleague, Dr. Daria Schooler, and she is with us today. Going to be talking about iatrogenic conditions and what that means and the law of unintended consequences. I'm going to read a little bit about her, but just so you have just a little thumbnail of her amazing career over many decades. She is a pharmacist, a physician, a neurosurgeon, medical researcher, and peer review consultant. You can learn all about her at dariaschoolermd.com. And I'm going to ask her to explain this super cool, looks like this OR shot here, which is pretty awesome. I'm going to ask her to explain that one. That's just a super cool photo. And I'm just going to read a little bit about our guest today so you can learn more about her as we get into our discussion. Dr. Daria Schooler's dedication to patient care and passion for professional excellence started early in life. She was valedictorian in high school in Indiana, got her bachelor's degree from Purdue University School of Pharmacy, becoming a practicing pharmacist. And then during her 4 years of medical school, at the Indiana University School of Medicine, Dr. Schooler worked as a hospital pharmacist part-time until graduation. She then completed her neurosurgery residency at the Cleveland Clinic before establishing the neurosurgery program at Columbus Regional Hospital in Columbus, Indiana. She retired from direct patient care neurosurgery in 2014 and still remains active in medical research and peer review consulting, and I'm sure she'll explain what that is to us. And also, she's one of the many physicians who recommends the best-in-class Beamer pulse electromagnetic field therapy home care medical device. So whatever platform you're on, please let's give Dr. Daria Schooler a warm Mondays with Michael welcome. Daria, so good to see you. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you, Dr. Gaeta. I'm still gobsmacked that you asked me to be a guest. I'm like, you want me on?
Yeah, you.
I had to do a double take on that email. You said, yeah, send me your information, because when we were on the medical doctors for COVID ethics Zoom, you were inviting Dr. Frost. I'm so glad that a lot of the folks stepped up to join you from that group on as guests. Like
they have. Thank you for I appreciate that. Thank you. It's a wonderful group that you're part of.
Yeah, and Shasta was able to get you across the finish line to get scheduled, because I had sent an email about you earlier to.
Oh, okay.
Charles. But they, all of us, I think we get really busy, and
yes,
things kind of fall off your attention span. And so I'm glad, but she perseveres probably better than I do, because I'm one of those.
She's amazing
people that you could either say I have OCD and ADHD, or you could say detail oriented and multitasking.
Yeah. There you go. No, that's great. No, I appreciate you taking the time today. And I know you've had a loss in the family that was unexpected over the weekend. So I'm so sorry about that.
I've got just a couple pictures at the end about that. But
that's great. So Daria, for folks who are less familiar with you and your journey, you've had a remarkable career. If you just tell us a little bit about your arc of career and life, and how you came to be doing the work you're doing today.
Well, it's you do I think this happens to just about anybody when you reflect back on your life and you go, how did I get here? And somewhere along the way, you start to figure out that there's some kind of path, and I have to say it's been divinely planned.
Yes, often is.
It's a confluence of circumstances combined with our free will choices that cause us to end up where we are. So the first thing that happened was I grew up in Northwest Indiana in a town called Whiting. And it is a company town for the big oil refinery right there. It started out as Standard Oil, Rockefeller. And actually that's how all of our, pretty much all of our grandparents came over from Europe, because they were brought in to work at the refinery. And at least on my dad's side. Okay.
Yeah.
And then on my mom's side, her parents were immigrants from Eastern Europe. Yugoslavia.
Yugoslavia. Okay.
Yeah, Yugoslavia, but different parts. And on my so my mom's dad, and this is going to come into play at the end, but my mom's dad, Grandpa John, he came over. He was working in coal mines in Serbia at age 12. At age 12.
12. Wow.
Yes. He was child labor in the coal mines, and now we're talking like 100 years ago, right? And then he came to America, checked in at Ellis Island, and worked his way out to Chicago.
Oh, same as my grandparents.
Yeah.
They came through Ellis Island in the 20s.
Absolutely. I think it was the same kind of scenario. And then my grandma, uh,
Right?
who ended up marrying grandpa in Chicago, she and
Oh,
her sister were put on the boat that checked in at Ellis Island. And she was a little girl. She was like 9 and her sister was 12. My
wow.
Aunt Margaret,
Wow.
my great Aunt Margaret, rest her soul.
Hmm.
And nobody came to pick them up. And they were just about to get put back on the ship at 11
Oh
o'clock
no.
at night to
Oh
go back
no.
to Europe. And one of their other aunts came and retrieved them at the last minute in New York City.
Wow.
So they too ended up connecting in the Chicagoland area, and
Yeah.
I'd have to check with one of my cousins, but it seems like they met in Chicago and got married in Chicago at the
Oh,
Serbian Orthodox Church,
sure.
and raised their 6 children. They had
Oh,
6 children, all growing up during the Depression. And
wow.
my dad's parents raised 4 children because my dad
Hmm.
has a fraternal twin, and only one of them was born before he left for America. And then grandma
Yeah.
got stuck in Slovakia
Yes.
because World War I happened. So she
Oh,
got stuck there
wow.
until after the war. So Aunt
Hmm.
Marge was 3 years old, roughly, when, and it's on my dad's side of the family again, when grandma and Aunt Marge could reunite with grandpa. And then when they both all got back together, that's when my dad, Uncle Louis were born, and then my Uncle Frank. So
Okay. Got
that's
it.
kind of the background there. So all immigrants. I'm only what's it, second generation American.
Yeah, me
Isn't
too.
that, yeah, isn't that wild?
Yeah, my
So,
parents were born in Brooklyn.
oh, okay. So growing up in the Chicago, 8 miles north of Gary, right on Lake Michigan, it's
Hmm.
just like a blue collar town and
Yeah.
down to earth. And in town, it's very small. It's Whiting, Indiana. It's the only thing it's really famous for is Pierogi Fest. If you want to go
Hmm.
get pierogies on the last weekend of July, they have Pierogi Fest.
Okay.
But when I was going to high school, I wanted to have some extra like spending money. So the only job I felt comfortable trying out for and getting was a job at the local Walgreens drugstore.
Okay.
So you see how this kind of is
Yeah,
playing into what happened over
it
time.
is.
So they put me they put me back in the stock room first, and I guess I didn't screw up. So then they put me in the cosmetic counter, and then I did okay there. So then they put me in the
Hmm.
pharmacy counter, and that's where I
Oh,
learned
wow.
how to count pills and do cash register and double
Yep.
check things. And so they got me started early on double and triple checking everything. So I was
Sure.
clearly interested in becoming a pharmacist by the time I graduated high school.
Yes.
And so that's how I ended up going there. And it's just like one step, like one foot in front of the other, basically.
Yep.
And when I got to Purdue University in pharmacy school, I also felt like I needed to have an income. So in 1980, I was able to moonlight working at Eli Lilly and Company. So now
Oh,
I'm in
okay.
pharmacy school and I'm getting industrial pharmacy, pharmaceutical manufacturing, on the job training, basically.
Oh, great.
And I was in the environmental control lab moonlighting there. So that's how I
Okay.
helped pay for college.
And you had done some you were doing some pharma lab work and research work as well, right?
Exactly. And that
Yeah.
came up through pharmacy school in the last 2 years. So it was year 4 and year 5 of the 5-year program to get a bachelor's
Okay.
degree in pharmacy. This was right before they rolled out the PharmD programs that were like 6 years long. And I was
Oh,
already kind of finishing up. And I only needed to take like 1 or 2 biology classes to qualify all my pharmacy credits to go to pre-med. So I
oh,
did that in
okay.
my 5th year. And in the, let's see, it was 1983. I got to back up a little bit. So 1981, when I was in my 4th year, our what was it? Medicinal chemistry professor.
Yes.
He's
Okay.
actually really famous. He was looking for someone to work in his hallucinogen lab.
Okay.
And I volunteered. I said, that sounds wild. And what is that? What was that? What did I get myself into? Neuropharmacology. You see how the nervous
Hmm.
system worked its way into my life?
Hmm.
And so I was in there studying some claimed effects of LSD on it was a lab research model. And
Okay.
Dr. Nichols was skeptical that the model that was published by another professor in another university was reliable.
Hmm.
And so my job was to reproduce his experiment and,
Right.
take all the measurements and everything. And it turned out that his testing wasn't correlating. So
Oh, okay.
my work disproved the work of another guy who had published
Wow.
this. And
Reproducibility is important.
absolutely, and that's the whole idea of scientific method.
Exactly.
And the whole idea of publishing papers back then was to make sure that your work could be checked,
Right.
peer review, right? And
Yes.
so Dr. Nichols, and the paper I got to be lead author on was about the unreliability of rat stomach fundus. It's in my CV to
Yeah.
predict the hallucinogenic activity of LSD.
Right.
And so that's basically what I worked on until I started going to med school. And then in medical
Right.
school, same thing. Not only was I working as a pharmacist, but also I got invited to participate in assisting a postdoc on a
Right.
neuroscience research project that turned out to be motor evoked potentials. So I was working with him and the local neurosurgeon. This is where the neurosurgeon comes in. So the local neurosurgeon, who was also teaching our neurotrauma and neurosurgery med school classes. I was at the Purdue campus for the first 2 years before I went to Indiana for the last 2 years. So that's where I got to meet a neurosurgeon. He was having me do little burr holes and test animals to put the leads in the skull, and then we would stimulate the brain and then record the motor movements of the limbs. And that's motor evoked potentials. So, and this was back in 1984 and 85. So I mean, we're back there. And the people in the biomedical engineering lab at Purdue University were just phenomenal. Some of their work was used to lead to things like this at the time, these scanners and trackers. And it was something that was originally requested by the military so they could do battlefield triage remotely to see if somebody's vitals had stopped or if they were still, so they could track people down and find them on the battlefield and help them get recovered if they were still alive. So it was kind of fascinating. And that was Dr. Leslie Geddes, Gedde. I was doing that work, if you ever hear his name. And he was pretty old at the time, but he was like the emeritus, head of the department or something. I don't remember exactly, but that's whose department I was working in. So I not only got the medicinal chemistry and undergrad research, and then I got the bonus research of biomedical engineering and with neuroscience emphasis when I was in medical school those first 2 years before I went to Indianapolis. So, and that neurosurgery seed was planted. And it, like I said, it somehow all came together that I developed an interest in the neurosciences, and I liked working with my hands, and the surgery thing came up. And I interviewed for like 5 different specialty residency programs, but my top choice was going to be neurosurgery. And when I matched at the Cleveland Clinic, they brought me in, and I was only like the 3rd female, I think, to finish the training program there.
Wow. Hey, I got my former brother-in-law was a neurosurgeon. Who and yeah, it was one of the casualties of the divorce was we had a great relationship. We just we're about the same age, and wonderful guy, great doctor, and just you appreciate this. We were at the Jersey Shore with her family, as we did every summer. It was the annual, coming together at the beach, and so we're on the boardwalk in Wildwood in South Jersey, and having an ice cream sandwich or so. I think it was a waffle cone was the big thing then. And I said, and we had just arrived. Everybody had just come together. It was like the first evening together on the boardwalk, which is the tradition. I said, "Well, how was your day?" And he said, "Well, this morning I removed a pituitary adenoma from this patient's brain." And I remarked, well, that's not the usual thing you hear. And when you ask somebody the question, "How was your day?" Well, I was doing brain surgery this morning. But he said. That I don't know if this was some time ago, so I don't know if this is still the case, but he said in any given year, there's only 7 neurosurgery residents that get accepted per year or something like that. Or maybe it was just in that state, I'm not sure. but that it was a very small group of folks got accepted into neurosurgery residencies.
The programs, they vary definitely from campus to campus where the
Yeah,
programs are
but
held.
there's not a lot nationally.
Now we had two. I mean, it was myself and one other guy.
Wow.
And actually, there were three in the year ahead of me, but one of them was an international trainee, and he went back to Singapore. So they were
Okay.
like the 1 year ahead of me.
Yeah.
And then I can't remember. Oh, there was another year where they needed a neurosurgery chief resident a year early. And I can't remember why that shook out that way, but I was asked if I wanted to do it because they asked
Yeah.
my cohort and myself,
Yeah.
and he didn't want to. He wanted to be chief resident his last year.
No.
So
Okay.
I ended up being chief resident a year early.
Oh,
And
wow.
that's right, because the guy that was exactly a year ahead of me was that was chief resident that year. He was by himself for some reason. I can't remember. And
so if I were, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So anyway, that's why I ended up working with him and being chief. And it was the same either way, whether you did it a year earlier or not. I mean, you still had hands-on experience well ahead of that time to be competent. And I really, appreciated that. And then the last year ended up being elective rotations that you would normally do the year before. So what I did was I spent like 6 months on rotating through different neurosurgery relevant areas in other specialties. Like I did neuro-ophthalmology for a month, and I did neuropathology for a month, and I got to work with all these world-class instructors and clinicians at the Cleveland Clinic.
So tell us about this photo, Daria. Where is this from?
Oh, that picture is from our local newspaper photographer here in Columbus, Indiana. Took that picture of me not long after I started my practice here.
So you're in the OR here?
Yeah, it's an actual me in surgery. They came into the operating room, they put a bunny suit on and, covered up and had their camera. And they wanted to, and I don't know if they were, it must have been they were featuring me because I just came to town and I was establishing the neurosurgery program at Columbus Regional. And so the thing about that picture was I was doing a carpal tunnel operation open. And so that's why I had my jeweler's loops on at magnified 2.5 power.
Oh, is that what you have on the eyepiece here?
Yeah, those are 2.5 power magnifying loops, and you can use them for watch repair. I mean,
oh wow!
So you can.
But you were doing a carpal tunnel release,
and you can see if you look in the reflection of the lens, you can see my hands operating. I don't know.
Oh, look at that! Oh, that's cool. Let me see if I can.
Yeah, if you could zoom in on that, you can.
Yeah. It'll take me a minute to get that, but that's cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Anyway, but that was like my favorite picture of me in scrubs. And since
great shot. Yeah.
You didn't see me 100 pounds heavier than I am right now.
Sure. Well, and I know in your career you were at least had, if not specialized, had a lot of experience in spinal surgery.
Correct. That was when you're in private practice and in general neurosurgery, which most people coming out of training now end up going to a fellowship and subspecializing and ending up being a aneurysm doctor or a tumor doctor. You see what I mean? A super complex spine doctor, they do all kinds of really complicated surgeries. And so everybody ends up not just doing their training, they do additional anywhere from 1 year to 2 years or longer fellowship with a subspecialty center. But I had early on wasn't particularly interested in academia. I was more interested in direct patient care.
Great.
And being in the operating room and being in private practice. I didn't put it this way. I didn't have the mindset for the publish or perish academic because that was real. I mean, the talented researchers that we had, they brought in grant money, and that's how they survived in their training program setting. So it was probably one more layer of stress. I don't know. But then being in solo practice was kind of stressful too.
Sure. If you're just joining us, welcome. I'm speaking with Dr. Daria Schooler, who is a neurosurgeon and pharmacist and medical researcher. And today we're going to be talking about, which we're going to get into now, or very shortly, our subject of the law of unintended consequences and iatrogenic disease. Dari, anything else you wanted to share before we get into that subject?
No, I'm just grateful that was able to work for 20 and a half years. And it turned out,
That's
and this
awesome.
is a reason Beamer was such a big deal for me, was if I'd have known about it, I probably wouldn't have injured my hands. I don't know if you can see the atrophy
Oh,
here.
oh, wow.
So I still have nerve damage in my fingers and I still don't have good feeling, but that's why I had to
From
start
what?
operating. And it was basically overuse phenomenon and
Oh,
neuropraxia, damage in the hands. But so we're talking carpal tunnel to the nth degree. And
wow.
it with combined with tissue edema and the repetitive strain of doing hand surgery where
Yikes.
you're like gripping like this. And
Wow.
my little hands had to use, that's why I couldn't play piano anymore. My little hands
Oh,
had to use these big man-sized tools. I mean, the the
wow.
the tool that I used the most repeatedly was a bone punch, which
Oh,
has a handle like a putty gun. If
right,
if you guys anybody has a putty gun to for caulking, but
right.
it has a long shaft, and at the other end is like a real tiny clipper to clip
Oh,
bone. And it's real
oh,
thin, and you have to like hold your hand in awkward positions and lift up to keep the foot of the tool from pushing on the nerve and causing damage. So
mm,
you're really in some contorted positions, and that aggravated compression of the nerve. So it was basically like a compartment
wow,
syndrome. Oh yeah, there
wow.
you go. You can see the my hand holding it.
So what are we looking at here?
Okay, so I think I can't tell if that's my left hand or right hand
Yeah,
from the reflection. I never
yeah.
stopped to think about that.
That's your
But
right hand.
yeah, and then my magnifying glasses are kind of covering the left hand in the patient's open, surgical wound.
Right.
So you could just see me holding like a little um, tool that,
Yeah.
like, it looks like a tiny little rake, but we're
Okay.
talking minutes, microscopic
Really
practically.
small. Yeah.
Yeah, really small, just to like
Really
hold
small.
a tendon out of the way or lift up on a ligament
Oh,
or something, whatever I was doing to release the tight compression. So the
right,
irony of this is the very surgery I'm correcting in this photo is the
right.
very condition that ended
Oh,
my career. I
oh
mean,
no. Oh,
yeah.
wow. I just hadn't thought of neurosurgery being so physically demanding, and that you would get a pretty intense repetitive strain injury from that.
and,
That's
and
wow.
yeah, oh yeah. As a matter of fact, working with an operative microscope,
Right?
um, and this sort of is I'm paying for it now kind of thing, but
Mm.
you had to tilt the scope and have your head in like a bent position for
Oh,
prolonged periods of time.
wow.
And now I got bone spurs in my neck.
Oh,
So I'm
wow.
using that beamer on my neck every morning.
Amazing. Oh, that's great.
Helps a lot.
And the other thing I learned from my brother-in-law, the neurosurgeon, also was if you need a particular surgery, and it could be done by an orthopedic surgeon or a neurosurgeon, go with the neurosurgeon. Now, maybe he was a little biased, but he said that we tend to be a little more delicate in how we approach things and not to be as brutal in the approach. It's like a little more refined approach.
Yeah,
If it's a surgery that could be done by either specialty. And again, maybe he's a little biased, but he said that our training is very much to minimize tissue damage
exactly.
and to, even if it takes longer, to do the surgery, to really minimize collateral damage, which leads to better recovery and all of that.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, I kind of made it. Well, okay, my nickname's Dr. Obvious because I just end up stating the obvious over time. But what I would explain to people that my bias was the same as your former brother in law's is that in neurosurgery, it's exactly what he said. You are focused on the neural tissue
Right?
and you have to clear the bone away to get to it. So the bone's
Oh,
getting in the way.
okay.
So your job is to protect and correct whatever the underlying structural problem is that's hurting the nerve. And so
Mm,
that's where we're nerve focused all the time, whether it's from the
right,
brain down to your toes, in terms of
right,
surgery. And
right.
then, but my joke was, well, orthopedics, they're bone doctors, and so they focus on the bone
Oh,
part, and the nerve's just a
interesting.
little bit of meat that's in the way. That's kind of mean, but it was like
Wow.
a joke I would crack.
No, that's fair. Well, yeah, I remember I had a patient come in who was an orthopedic surgeon when I was in New York. And I said, "How are you doing?" She said, "Well, my shoulder's kind of sore. I was whaling replacement hip into this guy's femur, and
Mm-hmm.
it wouldn't go in. So I really had to wail on it. And my shoulder's a little sore. Not the usual shoulder pain complaint that I would get,
No.
but anyway. But yeah, it's that's good to know. By the way, just for our listener, how wide is the spinal cord?
The spinal cord itself is pretty small once you start taking away the layers. Like, for example, in cadaver lab, when we did that in
Like
medical
if you had
school.
to like pinch your fingers, like how wide is the spinal cord?
Okay, the cord itself probably in a lot of places is only as big as your thumb.
Oh, okay, that's pretty
Okay,
thick for a
it's a
nerve.
little thicker up here in the neck where more
Okay.
nerves are feeding in, and then down it
Oh,
tapers down to it's called the cauda equina.
cauda yeah.
Yeah, horse's tail, because it just tapers down to where it's just the nerves going out the lower bottom
Right,
part.
right.
And that's just but there's places in the, like in the thoracic spine, it's probably more like an index finger. It can be
Oh,
very
okay.
narrow. And granted, it might be bigger, for adults than, and definitely way smaller for children,
For sure.
because,
Yeah.
these tissues grow as the person grows.
Right.
But yeah, that was always sort of like my eyeball measurement of that. I
Yeah.
can get a sort of
Oh no, it's fine.
the scale. I still have my spine models. I can bring show and
oh
tell.
no, it's okay. I was
So,
just curious. I was
but
just
yeah,
curious.
that's right. Because the canal itself is maybe like that big, you know.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah,
Yep.
it's pretty small. It's a few centimeters
Okay.
across and a few centimeters up. So as arthritis starts to grow in, or if a disc
Yep.
herniates,
Yep.
there's not a lot of room in there. And so
Yep.
that's
Yep.
basically all most of my job was making room for for
Okay.
the nerves, taking out a disc, taking off arthritis, taking out a tumor in the brain that was
Wow.
putting mass effect or traumatic injury that was
Yep.
putting pressure on the brain. It was all about
Right.
relieving pressure on nerves,
Wow. Well, I
and
remember
because of their blood flow gets
wow.
affected.
Well, I remember with my brother-in-law, he showed me a CT of a patient's brain, and they had had a head injury, and there was so much fluid, the brain got smushed over
Mm-hmm.
into two-thirds of the space it normally occupied,
Right.
and a third was fluid.
Exactly.
So, and they just came in. It was, he did, he was in a level one or something trauma center, so he saw a lot of head injuries.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow, that looks messed up. He's like, yeah, but I was like, I thought it was like permanent brain tap. He was like, no, no, I'm just going to drill a couple of holes. We'll drain the fluid and the brain will re-expand. I'm like, wow,
Oh yeah.
that's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
With those chronic expansile fluid collections, our
Yeah.
brain, and that we talked about this before, neuroplasticity, that if something's
Yeah.
happening gradually, you won't even know it until you get to sort of a critical point where function starts to get impaired.
Oh,
You might
okay.
have a headache, but then
Right.
you might later start to have problems with, depending on what part of the brain you have pressure on, might be a
Right.
speech problem, memory problem, but always like a headache. The really scary ones are when they start vomiting. That's when you got some critical pressure
Oh,
growing.
okay.
So
Okay.
that's why, when people are in accidents, you have to do neuro checks frequently, and, make sure that they're not declining.
Right.
Get a baseline scan and then a follow-up scan the next day.
Okay.
There's a lot to it.
Wow.
Spine is, where I practice, since I was by
Yeah.
myself,
Right.
if something required like a trauma team, I would ship it up to the med center. It's only an hour north of here. It's like
Oh,
50
okay.
miles north to Indianapolis. So,
Yeah.
and the helicopter would land and, grab the really catastrophic
Yeah.
injuries like that, where they
Yep.
need that golden hour, and they can get
Yes.
20 minutes. So
Oh, okay.
we would stabilize as we could and then get them up there for multi-team,
Wow.
multiple trauma management at a level one
Right.
trauma center like your brother-in-law worked at.
Yeah. Well, I'm speaking with Dr. Dari Schooler. If you have questions, she's a neurosurgeon, and this is the first time we've had a neurosurgeon on the show. She's also a pharmacist and an amazing person in general. But if you have questions for Dr. Schooler, I'm sure this will be the most accessible neurosurgeon you ever meet, because you can ask a question right in the chat box from our watch page or on our Zoom link. So, Dari, we want to get into this subject. We have a lot of data on this that pharma drugs, medical errors, all kinds of things are a significant cause of death. In fact, the death by medicine study that came out in 2004, reanalysis confirmed it in 2011, claimed or concluded that our medical system is the number one cause of death. causing about 1 million deaths per year between medical errors, pharma drug reactions, and so forth. And so we want to talk a little bit about that. I remember my first week of teaching. This was January of 1993. And I was teaching in a massage therapy program. That was my original health profession back in the day, and nutrition. And I threw out a statistic that 40% of all emergency room admissions were for drug reactions.
Mhm.
And this woman shot up her hand. She immediately she looked very upset, and she says, "Well, I have something to say about that. I have been an ER nurse for 20 years, and I have a problem with that statistic." I was like, "Oh, well, please tell us." She said, "It's much higher."
I bet, yeah.
That wasn't the. I was like, "Oh, here we go." But yeah, she was very much in agreement. But anyway, so tell us about, and I know you put some slides together, a presentation and such.
Sure.
If you want to jump into that,
Yeah.
and
Can you
again,
tell me how to share a screen? I don't know if I
yeah,
need.
at the bottom of the Zoom screen should be a green share button, and
Uh-oh. Do I have one of those?
I think you do, you should at the
I'm
very
on
bottom.
I'm on my iPad. So
iPad. Okay, that still should be fine. If you
oh,
expand.
it says it's not green. Here it says share.
Oh yeah, share. Share is
Okay,
good. And then you'll
share
you'll pick the your photo thingamajig.
share photos. Okay, let me see if it'll let me open my album.
Sure.
Uh ooh, here it is. All album. Oh, there it is right there. Iatrogenesis imperfecta.
Okay,
There
great.
it is. Will it open or do I start to
Yeah,
see
why don't you
photos?
click share and then select that photo album
Yeah, I've got it
and
selected
then
here.
click yeah, and then click that share again in that new window, and
Okay,
you
let's see.
should be good to go.
Select photos.
Yep.
No, it's not. Okay, wait a minute. Um, sorry, this is where I'm getting to be like a
Oh, no
Luddite.
problem. No
Is
problem.
that
We're
going to
good.
work? Oh, do I have to share all the photos? Wait a
Well,
minute.
you're just going to click on the first one and then click share, and then you can tab through them or arrow through them as
Okay,
you
let's
wish.
see. You know, it might be better to share screen because I'm getting jammed
That's
up
what I
on.
mean. Oh,
Okay,
share screen is fine
yeah.
too.
So let's try
Whatever you
share
like.
screen. That'll go way easier.
Sure.
So screen broadcast. Do I have to say? Oh, I've got Zoom. Click start broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
All right, come on. Hello.
Is it broadcast? Well,
Everything on your
let's.
screen will be recorded, enabled, do not disturb to. Okay, well, I already
Oh,
tried.
it might not be broadcast, but there
All
should
right.
be share, and then you'll see applicate. You'll see entire screen
Mhm.
or application windows, one of which will be your photo album.
Okay, share. And it's so the one option is screen, photos, share camera, iCloud, website URL, whiteboard. Those are
I
my
think
options.
photos. I think photos would be good.
All right, we could try that again.
Yeah, let's give
And
it a go.
okay, and then let me go back to the album. And then it
Let's
says
see how
select.
that goes.
Okay, hold on. Here we go. I picked the album and then I'm going to select the photos. Let me just do that next. One, two,
Sure.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, wait, hold on. Got to do them in order.
Okay. Sure.
Thank you for bearing with me because this,
Oh no, hey, it's a live show. It's okay.
I was,
Folks understand on a live show, sometimes stuff happens. Yeah, where it takes a minute to get things set up. That's perfectly fine.
oh, there we go. Okay, so total of 29 photos.
Sure.
And then I got a blue arrow. I'm going to click that. Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
you
Can
did
you
it.
see it?
You did it.
Yay! Oh my
Well
goodness.
done.
I'm so happy. Thank you,
You're
Jesus.
awesome.
You should have heard me walking around the house praying this morning. And then she has to
Well,
call me. And like I said, she gave me a little pep talk and
prayers answered. And
prayers were answered.
before you jump into the deck, we have a question from one of our regular listeners. Are decompression tables any help with L4, L5 anterior listhesis? And what about inversion chairs?
Oh, isn't that interesting? Yeah. Now, the decompression tables, I believe, is a commonly used tool by chiropractors.
Yep, it is.
And the inversion tables are like your teeter hang up. And actually, some people really benefited from that. That were my patients that just needed to unload. It was very common. They only cost a few $100s. So a lot of people would get them. And if they could medically tolerate being upside down, they could literally take the load off their discs and help things improve. And I've got Beamer bias. Like I said, I probably would have had everybody.
Sure. No, we're going to talk about that.
But the nice thing about that is the complementary aspect of it. But
Yes.
as far as specifically L4, L5 spondylolisthesis and correcting a realignment, I do believe that depending on the severity of it and the I guess the subjective response obtained by a chiropractor using a decompression table
Right.
would be, I'll just say results may vary.
Sure.
Because sometimes a
Sure.
spondylolisthesis is mobile and other times it's immobile.
Oh, okay.
And when they're mobile and symptomatic, those were the
Hmm.
ones that if the non-operative treatments like doing the exercise, going to the chiropractor, doing physical therapy, all those things, wearing a back brace, if all those things failed,
Right.
then and it was a mobile spondy, in other words, like it would move when with the patient's body position. You could literally see that on an x-ray, the upper vertebrae sliding forward relative to
Yes.
the vertebrae below it.
That's right.
Those were the cases that if it was that mobile, it had to be fused with metal rods and
Oh,
okay, that was a big deal. If it was non-mobile, in other words, it sort of ground itself to a halt,
right.
but that slip was creating a narrowing, those were the ones I could decompress and they
Yep.
wouldn't have a progressive instability after removing the bone. And I'd still get
Yeah.
the pressure off the nerve and the patient was pain free with a micro
Wow.
incision and a small
Hmm.
decompression. But a lot of people are stuck in that middle zone where they're miserable and it's mobile and it hasn't had
Hmm.
time to age into, basically be the equivalent of crusting over, where it sort of auto fuses.
Interesting.
Yeah, the body's amazing how it tries to correct
It
these things.
is. Yeah, that's what I have. I think I have a stable one. I've got a half-inch anterior displacement and had some stem cells and platelets and stuff to stabilize it.
Okay,
Apparently couldn't be improved, they said, the orthopedic guy, but he said we can strengthen the area so it's stronger.
that's good. And I'm certain that having the Beamer is doing a lot to help with any
Beamer's been
inflammatory
fabulous.
issues. Yeah,
It's
that's
helping
right.
so much. Yeah.
This whole thing about complementary medicine is and integrative health is so important. And
Yes.
when I did join Beamer, which by the way, I was the first neurosurgeon doctor Beamer
Wow.
distributor they ever had, and Dr. Burke was all
That's great.
excited. He called me, he goes, "Oh, we got a neurosurgeon on the team!" And but
That's
I told him as I got to use mine more and more, and we
yes.
spoke frequently
That's
about
great. He is
different
wonderful.
things, and some of the
Yeah.
insights I told you about the lymphatics flow
Yes.
was from a conversation I had with him after he
Oh.
had a conversation with Dr. Klopp, God rest his soul.
Oh,
And
wow.
oh yeah, it was really neat. And so that's one
Hmm.
of the reasons why, whether I sell a lot of Beamers or a little, I don't get very many orders because I'm not out
Sure.
there. I'm not a pro salesperson.
Sure, sure.
So, but I will, to my dying breath, be recommending Beamer for everyone. And what I want to
Yes.
say about that, real quick, I know it's a little
Yeah.
bit out of sequence, but
No, it's all right.
this is what occurred to me over the weekend as I was thinking about this and thinking about how beneficial we are, how much we benefited from Beamer, both us personally and people
Yes.
we know and love.
Yep.
And that is, I would love to see Beamer become part of a standard of care
Hmm.
across multiple platforms, clinics, not
Yes.
just home use, because home use is going to be personal preference and affordability, but
Right.
also a standard of care maybe in the work environment.
Hmm.
In other words,
That's
employee
brilliant.
health clinics. And one of
Yep.
the I saw that in real time because one of my former distributors runs a company and she has
Right.
40 employees and she bought two Beamers and she makes her employees get on it before they do their 8 hour
Oh,
shift.
it's brilliant.
Yeah, it's in a garment costume. They're on sewing machines and things, and
Oh, wow.
a lot of them don't have, they're on limited budgets, and
Yes.
so for healthcare, she's making her employees healthier at the
Wow.
cost of two Beamers instead of like, you know, probably insurance policies that she couldn't
Oh,
afford.
yeah.
I mean,
It's massive.
yeah, exactly. So I don't know the specifics, but she's a wonderful gal, and she's
That's
just so
great.
busy with her regular business that she didn't stay a distributor, but she bought
Yes.
several for. She bought one for her mom, and her mom
Yep.
and dad wouldn't give it back, so she had to buy a
Oh,
second.
wow.
So I said the best thing
That's
about being a
amazing.
distributor is you get discounts.
You do. You do. So, if
So,
folks want to learn more about this medical device designed
mhm.
for home care or office use, just go to michaelgaeta.com/PEMF. And this is the leading device in this class worldwide. So far, I've found 69 studies using this specific device. And I think that's why Dr. Schooler, in addition to just seeing the results, chose this particular device over others, actually has an evidence base.
Yeah, we've got to compare notes on those papers because I might have even more because
I know. I'm positive there are more. I just I had two
2017.
folks come to me over the last 2 weeks and say, "Oh, I think I found more."
Oh,
So
good.
yeah, we'll have to huddle on that. But yeah, if you could
Okay.
reshare,
Oh, how do we do
now
this?
that you're just
Share.
do what you did again.
Okay, that's easy enough. Let's see, share. And then I'm going to go to the album again.
Sure.
And again, bear with me.
Yeah.
And I'm just breathing a sigh of relief that I actually did this because I
Well
panicked.
done.
Shasta called me today. I had saved these, I downloaded these templates for the slides in my
Oh yes.
files, and then they
Yes.
wouldn't come up. And I was like, I was almost
Oh.
hyperventilating. And she's like, and because it's something to do with how you search for it.
Yeah.
There we go. Two more.
Sure.
There we go. And there's the blue.
So what Dr. Schooler's queuing up is just a discussion of concerns that she's seen, obviously firsthand as a physician over decades, of illnesses caused by the treatment, and that was the headline we put out with our promotion of this particular show was when the treatment is worse than the disease, which is sometimes the case. And so as a surgeon and a pharmacist, that's kind of unique. She's going to talk to us about that.
Okay. And then, so the term iatrogenesis imperfecta, that was something I jotted in my notes during a pharmacology class in 1980, 81, when we were at a pharmacology class specifically about the complications of drugs and how to treat the complications. And as our professor was marching us through, and he had one of those projector things you could write on it and it would project it on. He was like jotting his handwritten notes
overhead
down.
Transparency. That's how I started.
Yeah, overhead. So he was working on the overhead, and I was like writing down everything he was writing down. And then when he got to the third or fourth tier of drug side effect, drug treatment, because you'd have the drug, and then you'd have the side effect, and then you'd have another drug to treat the side effect of that, and then it had a side effect, and then that needed a drug. And that's why I don't know where I osmosed Latin from, but I just wrote in the margins iatrogenesis imperfecta. It's like, how far does this go? It's an imperfect issue. So that's why, but now here we are all these years later, and I wasn't even Dr. Obvious back then, but this was clearly a Dr. Obvious thought.
Yeah.
And so it is the unintended consequences of health practices and how to prevent and correct them.
Great.
And as it says here, modern healthcare is powerful, but power brings complexity. And we're exploring well-intentioned interventions which can unintentionally cause harm, and how clinicians, integrative practitioners, families can reduce risk through awareness, communication, and collaboration. And I would say communication is definitely huge. And this is perfect for everyone: physicians, pharmacists, integrative health practitioners, nutritionists, herbalists, midwives, and families managing complex care of their loved ones. So this is something that really isn't discussed very often. And that's why I thought this might be a good thing, because it was sort of mulling around in the back of my mind with the COVID shot complications and everything else. Now I can go tab, next one. Oh, is that going to work? Nope. Why isn't that working? How do I go
sometimes you have to click on that picture and then tab or arrow.
Oh, to the right. Okay. Let's see if that'll work.
Sometimes that does it.
Uh-oh. Tell me I'm stuck on my first slide.
Something's changing.
Oh, hold on. Oh, I just have to touch the screen and slide. I had a slide left. I had a swipe left. Okay. So there's the title again, and there's my website. And oh, by the way, I didn't mention this, but if anybody goes to my website, they'll see it is for peer review work. But you can click the about and hear, a little more about me, and then pull up my curriculum vitae. But I don't even know if I put any links in there to Beamer. So I have a separate web page for that, like everybody does.
Yeah.
So
tell us about what this peer review thing and consulting and research and all that is.
Yeah, I'll go back one. Okay, so the peer review is something, when I was in active practice, I had been contacted 2-3 times a year by lawyers to do case reviews on disputed claims.
Oh.
And I routinely every week was consulted by workman's comp insurance companies to oftentimes evaluate and treat and take over care of a patient, or to provide a second opinion. And in this process, you're basically doing everything you always do as a doctor, but it creates a very thorough interrogation of not only the history that you're given or the claim that's being made, but you have to dig deeper, and you have to look at everything that you do as a doctor, looking at everything that the patient's has in their past medical history and everything else, but also looking at whether or not they were suffering from a problem that predisposed them to a symptomatic injury from work, or was it something like an actual accident where something dropped on their head, you know what I mean, where it was just totally unanticipated. And so these are important medical legal decisions or medical legal questions that I was asked. So it wasn't just patient symptoms, fix it, but also, where did this come from? How did it happen? Were there pre-existing conditions, or, you know, those kinds of things? Was it an aggravation? And that all comes into weigh in later, but you need to establish the evidence up front for helping that person. After you release them, they're going to eventually have their workers' comp claim closed and get a settlement. And so the settlement calculations come in place. So even though it wasn't something I was directly interested in, it was something that was important for the payer, the insurance company, the employer, and definitely the patient. Because, and here's the sad irony: when at the end, when I hurt my hands, I was the only workers' comp claim ever filed against my own company. Was my hand injury from doing surgery.
Wow.
So again, it was one of these things where this confluence of experiences, and then it comes right back around. It's like a cosmic irony, if you want to call it that. And sometimes I say God's a practical joker. But yeah, so that's like I said, the irony was not lost on me. Trust me.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's why the one thing I can still do, even though I'm not involved in direct patient care, I am able to do a thorough deep dive on reviewing medical records. Now that I'm retired, I have time to do it, as opposed to when I was in practice.
Okay.
I'm getting pop-ups. I hope those aren't showing up. When I'm in practice, you don't have a lot of time because you're seeing patients in the office, you're doing surgeries. Right. You don't have time to sit there and pour over, 300 pages of medical files and then write a report. Now I can do that. I got the time. So if they want to pay me, I'm happy to do it from my house in my pajamas.
Oh, there you go.
And so anyway, that's it. But I have helped save in cases where there's a claim and maybe the payer didn't want to pay or pay for treatment, but I was able to go to bat for the injured worker because it was clearly a work-related injury. And a lot of times that's all they needed to know. And then they would just go ahead and I didn't have to go to court or anything. And in other cases, it was maybe somebody who was trying to falsely file a claim for something they already had wrong with them to get the insurance to pay for it. And it's tragic, but that happens a lot more often than people realize, unfortunately. And when the economy goes bad, it happens more. So, unfortunately, I've had to tease through all those things. And each case is different, but now I have no particular, either side, plaintiff or defendant, I am contacted by both. They just want my opinion. They just want to know what the medical evidence says. Yes. And that's just an unvarnished truth. And if they ask my opinion, I'll give it. If they just want me to summarize things, I do that. So that's what I'm doing now.
Very good.
It's like that and selling Beamers. I'm not really generating a lot of revenue at, but it's because I don't market myself well, I don't think.
Well, it's life provides.
That's what I said. I'm just trusting it to God, basic's got to put me where he wants me when. To serve whatever purpose. And I'm available. It's like here, I was one of those people. I raised my hand. Take me, boss. Great. Anyway,
all right. So what is iatrogenesis?
Okay, so let's start here with this introduction. It, by definition, in a medical and lay term, it means, and there are examples in healthcare, nutrition, pharmaceutical practices, and why it matters. So it is basically, and I think I hope one of the slides in here has some terms like definitions, but let's keep going. Here we are. So the definition in medical is harm caused by medical or health intervention. And it can be pharmacologic, procedural, psychological, or systemic, and is often unintended. It should be always unintended, but sometimes something can cause a complication, and that's why. And this, you're going to hear this more than once. Informed consent is so important.
Mm-hmm.
People have to know what the risks, the indications, and the alternatives are to each and every treatment. And so they have some realistic expectations of outcome. And this was critical with surgery. And neurosurgeons and obstetricians are the two highest sued professions in the medical field. So we had the highest liability and the highest malpractice insurance.
Because, oh yeah, that and OBGYN, like
that's OBGYN, absolutely. So Dr. Thorpe and I had the same size targets painted on our medical legal back.
Yeah. Well, so, that was a joke. I was in the ski lodge at Beaver Creek with my former brother-in-law, and he was telling me about this. He said his liability insurance was $250,000 a year when he was in private practice, and I was joking to him, it's like, dude, you have to work at least a couple of weeks just to pay for your liability insurance.
Oh yeah.
And he said, well, it's a little more than a couple of weeks, but
definitely, yeah. Oh yeah, I don't even want to start singing the blues about what I witnessed during the time of my career, but
sure.
It really took a turn.
Just a quick anecdote on the, like here I am with my, $1,000 acupuncture policy, and he's like, mine's $250,000 just 100%. For the insurance.
And you can see why after Obamacare kicked in and the revenue cash flow from payments bottomed out.
Yep.
Why physicians that were in independent practice could no longer afford the overhead of things like malpractice and ended up selling their practices to hospitals. And that's why now we have all these hospital employed primary care physicians, nurse practitioners, even the specialty groups.
Oh, is that what drove that? The liability insurance?
Yep. Well, not just liability, but the other nail in the coffin that I was witnessing, when you have a fixed amount of revenue and then the payments drop off from third-party payers, Medicare and Medicaid.
Right.
And your malpractice, it's like any insurance. All your overhead goes up every year, right? Your utility bills, your office rent, your employee raises, you name it. And then you throw in another curveball with extra regulation. And this was, I think, the kiss of death. It was all the electronic health record overhead. And it was insane how expensive. And I was making the argument that when the negotiations were happening for Obamacare, the only two parties that weren't in the room were physicians and patients. The IT companies got their pound of flesh. The software companies got their pound of flesh. And this was all mandated. So then people had to do it or they wouldn't get any third-party payment. And that overhead, that sunk them. They just said, well, fine, hospital, give me a paycheck. I'll show up, punch a clock. But then they got told what they could and couldn't do. And like I said, everything that happened with Obamacare, starting with this EHR, electronic health record stuff, about 23 years ago, ultimately led to the untenable position that happened in hospitals in 2020 with COVID. And doctors being told they had to give remdesivir and they had to do this and they had to do that. And doctors that knew in their conscience that what the patient really needed was IV steroids and vitamin C. They didn't need remdesivir, morphine, and ventilator.
Oh, yes.
You see the death protocol that was mandated by HHS, CDC, NIH, and it was tied to CMS, to the hospital's payments. And this is the kind of stuff we go into on Medical Doctors for COVID Ethics. So I don't want to go down that rabbit hole too far.
Yeah.
But some of a lot of this iatrogenesis, that's why so many doctors just either quit, gave up, or got burned out and just stopped caring.
Yes.
Because we're human beings too. And luckily I was already injured and on disability. So I was like out of the loop.
Right.
Again, God spared me, even though I still miss doing surgery. So that's basically what we're looking at, is that help that actually harms, and should be unintended. Honestly.
Right, of course.
So next slide. So why this matters. So we're going to look at, and actually I have one slide with this Dr. McCary paper at the end, if anybody wants to grab a screenshot and they can go look it up. But basically that medical error is a leading cause of morbidity.
Yes.
Not just complications like iatrogenesis that just happen as, let's call it, everybody knows it as side effect, but also errors. And I don't think computerization helped that one bit. Uh,
Right.
Polypharmacy. Again, people are on a bunch of meds, and they'll be also on over-the-counter meds, or they might be on meds they buy off the street by a drug dealer. And without getting a good interrogation of the patient and their medical history, these things will be missed.
Yes.
And then the point about supplement drug interactions rising, because as people start to try and help themselves and try to get off prescription meds and try to stop going to doctors, they start taking their, over the counter things they can get, and herbs and whatnot. And people can get all kinds of, mischief with that as well. Totally unintentional.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why it's important for everyone. And I can't emphasize this enough. You must be disciplined in due diligence.
Yes.
You can't just buy a TV commercial talking point on anything. And unfortunately, most of the public is just bombarded with that on a daily basis. And so we don't realize how much it's affecting our decision making, but we always have to use discernment. And I don't care if you are a high school dropout or you are I live at where Cummins Engine is. If you're a high functioning Cummins engineer developing engine parts or whatever.
Yes.
Actually, those guys sometimes overthink things too much, and you have to talk them off the ledge sometimes to
the eternal engine.
Yeah, exactly. So types of iatrogenics, again, like I said, I was first exposed to this through pharmacology, but also procedural. Obviously, that would be a surgical complication potentially, or even a like I could see this happening in an IV therapy clinic. That's maybe just how people go to these. What do they call them? They're calling them juice bars or something. These infusion places.
Yes.
I don't know if they're called juice bars or. But you could literally walk off the street, go in there and get hooked up to an IV and, get rehydrated, or spend $1,000 and get an IV infusion of some vitamins or whatever to feel better. And they're not as strictly regulated, I guess you can say. So complications can happen there. If there's a, contamination that leads to infection because the sterile technique wasn't observed, that can happen, and it wouldn't be at a clinic, at a doctor's office, or at a hospital. That could happen in one of these freestanding, self-care type facilities. Diagnostic iatrogenesis, again, a good example of that would be first, people are raising questions, and you'd have to ask somebody like Dr. Thorpe about this, but the risk of, for example, repeat mammograms, the radiation exposure.
Yeah, right. What's your opinion on that?
Okay, I honestly, if you look at a mammogram, it's definitely a higher risk than a plain x-ray, like a chest x-ray.
Oh.
And then if you look at the radiation exposure of
so wait, does that mean it's more radiation than a chest x-ray?
It's more concentrated.
Oh.
Okay. And sometimes concentration affects, reactions. I still think it's pretty low risk, but I think this habitual yearly mammograms, if you're not at extremely high risk for that, and I keep thinking there has to be better scanning techniques, even MRI, for example, that could become sensitive to that. And then there's things like thermography, which you probably, I don't know if you use thermography, but
I recommend it.
Yeah.
I don't practice it here, but I recommend it.
And again, that's getting really into the weeds, but definitely diagnostic complications. Those are long-term complications, right? But then you can have diagnostic short-term complications. And again, getting back to like getting a dye injection, like a dye is not like a color dye, but a contrast enhanced study where you're injected with something that's radio opaque for a CAT scan.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So you can have that, and usually it doesn't cause kidney damage or something like that, unless somebody's already impaired in their kidney function. So this is why the radiologists have a big responsibility to calculate dosages, dilutions, and exposure.
Yes. Well, that was my the other brother-in-law I miss was a radiologist. He was a chief of radiology in Minnesota. And so he wonderful. I mean, he was a wonderful guy. And he had said that most of the contrast dye washes out, so to speak, in about 36 hours. Is that what you found as well? I guess it depends on dosage and which isotope and the patient's clearance and
Yeah.
liver
Yeah.
and kidney
Renal
function.
function. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Renal function's a biggie. And I know that
Okay.
certain treatments, like milligrams, for example, you really don't want to be just willy-nilly injecting iodine contrast into somebody's spinal fluid. That's why MRI
Yeah.
was such a revolutionary improvement,
Oh,
because
okay.
it's not invasive unless you have to give an intravenous, through an IV, you give the contrast. And it then
Oh, okay.
circulates to the part of the body that you're studying.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And then, so there's different types of diagnostic. And then, of course, there's iatrogenesis, and this goes back to medical error. If the wrong lab result is entered into the wrong patient's chart, you see, and
Yep.
that
Yep.
screw up can happen at the lab draw facility. It could happen at
Right.
the laboratory where specimens got switched, or it could happen in the recording end of it and put in the
Right.
wrong patient record.
Oh, okay.
Misfilings, we had to be so diligent about that at our office, especially when we were scanning documents into the computer to make sure that a page didn't stick from another patient's chart when you were scanning the next set of documents into another patient's chart. You had to really double and triple check to make sure everything was where it belonged, proper
Okay.
filing.
Okay.
And again, a lot of these are unintentional human errors.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and if you've ever had a copy machine stick or a printer stick, you can see
Right.
how,
Right.
or grab two pieces of paper at once, that things like
Yes.
that happen. And then nutritional iatrogenesis, the emphasis there, you could say, is perhaps on, again, maybe somebody's thinking they need a beneficial supplement because they saw something on TV about it, and maybe it's not right for them. And it actually can cause
Okay.
complications for a particular individual, maybe of an autoimmune nature. Maybe they're allergic to a food additive in a supplement or a protein shake or something like that, or just uh, individual person's nutritional tolerance, or if they're
Yep.
the biggest problem we have is with people with glucose intolerance that can't give up cookies.
Oh, okay.
See? So
Okay.
again, the personal choice, free will, but also
Yep. Yep.
why people have to be educated about what their health is. And
Right.
sadly, in this day and age, primary care doctors cannot provide the type of education they used to because of the
Oh.
time crunch.
Oh.
And
Okay.
that's why, in a way, having the internet can be a blessing, because
Right.
people should really take the responsibility to do their own homework. And then maybe,
Yes.
and I'll get to this at the end, I don't want to get too far off point, but
Sure.
I would like to see everybody take more personal responsibility for their own health. And not
Yes.
just, I had people come in and I explained to them what was wrong,
Right.
and they go, well, you're the doctor, you just fix it. And I'm like, no, bro, you got to tell me, what risks you're willing to take. Are you hearing what I'm saying here? Because,
Yes.
but I mean, God bless them. They trust you so much, especially since
Yes.
I did have a good reputation. So people were expecting me to do the right thing for them because I
Yes.
would.
Yes.
Um,
Sure.
but it was like, no, I still need your consent. Are you getting what I'm saying here?
Yeah. Sure.
I don't want anybody to be mad at me anyway. So, and then you have psychological types of iatrogenesis. And I'm going to tell you one right now. If you don't take this shot, you're going to kill your grandma.
Oh, that was terrible.
Gaslighting people.
That
and
was
and
terrible.
and again, I watched this build up over time, and again, it's just like how my career developed, from the time I went to work at the drugstore in high school. But
Yeah.
you see year by year a layer of something incrementally shifting public information, public perception.
Right.
And it's almost as if they're laying the groundwork for what happens next.
Oh, okay.
For example, and here's like a non-medical example, but planes hit the Twin Towers in New York, and Building 7 that everybody forgets about.
Yep.
And everybody's like, oh, we're under attack, we got to kill those bums, and let's go to war, and
Right.
they were spy, if we had better spy stuff here at home, we could have caught them.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
next thing you know, now you're under this global surveillance net.
That's right.
When
That's
you
right.
are violating every Fourth Amendment constitutional right you have to privacy. And
That's
they
right.
used shock and awe event to
Hmm.
get your consent to forego your own protected liberties.
Okay.
So it's the same thing with the medical
Right.
aspect as well. COVID is just our most glaring example. I don't want people to ever forget what they did to us.
Oh,
and I know you talk about it all the time, and everybody on our medical doctors for COVID ethics and that Rumble channel where your video is, all of our videos are on there for the past 5 years.
Oh, wow.
And people can just see all kinds of amazing guests, you know, across the spectrum of things we need to know kind of thing.
Right.
And all, well, they bring the receipts, you know, it's very meritorious, you know. And then again, number 6 sort of kind of gets, people get mentally tenderized with the psychological stuff so that then systemic and policy driven implementations can take hold that violate you of your freedom, your choice, that type of thing. Right. And then again, now we're looking at root causes, human factors. Again, we're all, it is, I will tell you this, it is stressful to feel like, you know, the buck stops with you and that patient's well-being stops with you. And if you do one thing that isn't, you know, like you're not paying attention that day or whatever, you could hurt somebody or kill them. So that's why one of the things I remember very vividly, one of the seminars we went to as just doctors in general, like for their state malpractice insurance, you know, webinars, they want you to go there so that they know you got the message from them on defensive medicine practice and proper documentation. And what the one speaker said to the neurosurgeons was, you have zero margin for error.
Really?
Yeah, zero margin for error.
Wait, referring to what? The documentation?
For your practice in your care of patients. There's zero margin for error. And it really is true. I never challenge that because, you know, if you operate at the wrong level, that's on you. Right. You weren't diligent enough in your radiology imaging or these, and this happens more in orthopedics, but it can happen in other specialties as well. Operating on the wrong side of the patient. Have 2 knees. Even the spine has 2 sides, left and right. And you wouldn't believe how, again, that OCD piece of it, that I would hang the x-rays up. I double check to make sure right and left, you know, the actual films, x-ray films in the operating room. And then I would take, and I usually did a lot of this before surgery.
Because the film may be mislabeled?
It wouldn't be mislabeled, but you could hang it upside down, backwards, and think you're looking at the left side when it's the right side. You had to like go up and look at the fine print and see, does it say left, does it say right? Make sure the patient's name's correct again. Make sure you got the right, the most recent study. And then I took a China marker, which is like a red crayon. And then where the abnormality was, I usually marked this in advance because I was showing it to the patient. And I would put an arrow like and I'd write L4, L5 left and put the arrow and show, you know, where the disc abnormality is. And when you're looking at a 2-dimensional image and you're thinking in 3D, you're doing this in real time also in the operating. So you map it out in your mind ahead of time, and then you actually execute it in the operating room, but you still have to do all these double checks, triple checks. And I got in that habit back when I was working at the drugstore, because you had to check your label, you had to check your milligrams, you had to check your quantity, you had to double check the prescription that the doctor wrote by hand. And then once I lined all that up and got it ready to go, the pharmacist would check it, he'd check it off, and then I could just dump the pills in the bottle. He would check the label, or male and female pharmacist. And so everything had to line up. So you get one distraction, right? Like somebody coming up and talking out of school, or your phone going off. Nowadays with mobile devices, you got to really be careful that you don't get off your game.
Oh, okay.
And at a drugstore, it's a little more risky because there's so much going on at once. There's a lot of cognitive dissonance.
Well, for sure.
And so that's why, hey, if you ever see the pharmacists behind glass, they're trying not to get robbed, but also they need to focus on what they're doing. So don't be yelling over the counter at them. Wait your turn, okay? Be nice to your pharmacist. They're doing their best. Now, some of them are, there's a lot of people clocking in these days, especially since COVID, both in hospitals and in pharmacies, that they're just making a paycheck. And you almost have to, still be respectful and polite. But if you sense that somebody's not on their game, say, hey, I'll come back later, or,
Oh, okay.
Well, it's kind of scary. You just want to just people need to pay attention to everything all the time. You know,
Sure.
And not everybody wants to do that because it can be stressful, but I guess like everything else, it's a discipline. You can discipline yourself to do that.
It is. And I remember, telling just, because I appreciate pharmacists because I've seen over the years, this is just, my 36th anniversary is coming up in a couple of months.
Oh, wonderful.
That a lot of patients have been saved by their pharmacist for
Right.
catching bad interactions in a patient who's seen several specialists,
Yes.
getting several prescriptions from several specialists who may not always look at the whole case and what else the patient is taking. And I remember a woman came in for her follow-up visit. She was all like shaken up. I'm like, what happened? She's like, I just came from the pharmacy. I'm like, what happened to the pharmacy? She's like, well, the pharmacist said I could have been seriously, injured if I had filled this prescription that I got from the cardiologist or whatever it was. This is many years ago in New York. And she said, I just had to thank the pharmacist for catching that. Now, does that happen as much these days with all the electronic this and that? Or is it still a thing where pharmacists are catching bad combinations?
That's an excellent question, actually, because with the electronic prescribing,
right?
And I don't know, it's sort of like a wild card what's going to happen as AI comes in.
Yes.
But some of that computer database artificial intelligence can potentially flag an alert.
Oh.
Okay. And it may do it across multiple databases because the pharmacist may be just one of a number of pharmacists a person goes to, especially if it's somebody who travels.
Okay.
And if they have a prescription from that they got filled at CVS, and then the next town they had to go to where they were working, they had to fill it at Walgreens, or they see a different specialist at different institutions, like you were talking about. Back before there was this integrated database of prescribing, and now I've been out, like I said, I've been retired since 2014, so it could be even more sophisticated than this now. But the more those systems were able to talk to each other, the more it could potentially flag a concern.
Okay.
But I wouldn't say it's ironclad and risk-free. And that's why, having a human being with eyeballs on it, you don't want to have a digital prescription shot off into a drugstore and then spit out of a vending machine for you.
Yes.
And have an AI robotic pharmacist asking if you have any questions. I just don't think that's a good idea.
That's a good point.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's going to get there, but I've seen enough dystopian sci-fi movies, it's like something from Idiocracy, because where the people are, and that's the problem with the human factor. If we can back up a little bit, is the complexity of the system itself may lead to, I don't want to say dumbing down, but a less comprehensive attentiveness by the human factor. You know what I mean? Because they're
relying they get lazy, like, the computer will back me up. I don't have to think about it too.
And it's already getting scary with med students. They can't think outside of the algorithm. If the computer tells them to do this, this, and this, that's what they're going to recommend. They're not even going to think through the risks, indications, benefits, and alternatives to a treatment. Yeah.
That's right. And Paula's got go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Paula's got a question for you. I'm not sure what this means. What is the percentage of failed back syndrome? Paula's asking. I'm not sure what that means, but what that question means. What is the percentage of?
Well, again, it's a good question.
Failed back syndrome.
Yeah, failed back syndrome. I think it's probably okay. I'm going to work on the understanding that the definition of failed back syndrome. Let's clarify the definition. What we would see as failed back syndrome in neurosurgery or orthopedic spine surgery, but spine surgery in general, is where a specific treatment was accomplished, like a surgery or an injection or a percutaneous procedure. And the goal was to have that person be relieved of their condition to the best of its abilities. And again, this is where informed consent is so critical, because, and I'll give you a real world example of this. Please. I had a patient who was a cigarette smoker, and she was a bit frail, probably in her 40s. And she was then in a car accident. And so she had muscular trauma, like a whiplash type thing, on top of a spine nerve impingement in her neck.
Oh.
And she clearly had neurologic issues in her arm that directly correlated with the MRI scan. And oh yeah, she was depressed too. That's another thing when you start talking about failed back syndrome. So here's this lady, and I couldn't emphasize it enough. I said to her, and her husband was there too. And so we'd visited multiple times. I said, all right, I want you to know that our goal for surgery is to relieve the pressure on the nerve to help your arm recover from nerve compression, pain, and nerve damage. So we are having a little risk of spinal cord nerve damage from the surgery, but we have the benefit still is expected to be greater than the risk, which should be pretty low. And like we're talking 1%, 2%, 3% maybe for like making someone worse with surgery. So when you're meticulous and you're, like I said, you're crossing all your T's, dotting all your I's, double checking everything throughout a whole procedure, being vigilant and preventing complications ahead of time by anticipating where they could occur, like things like bleeding, spinal fluid leak, things like that. So we go through all that, and I made sure, and I documented. Oh boy, do I document. I documented everything I said. So she agreed to the surgery, and her arm was fixed. But guess what? Her neck still hurt. And I told her 10 times ahead of time, your neck pain and headaches won't get better with surgery. Don't expect it. If it happens, it's a bonus. I said it over and over and over. And then when she came in for her, 2-week checkup, oh, my neck still hurts. Yeah, I know. Just that's why we're going to have you go to therapy. But I told you had torn muscles and ligaments. Surgery isn't going to fix that when it's like between your neck and your shoulder, then soft tissue injuries. And she would have been a great candidate for Beamer. And plus she was smoking. So that was compromising her circulation and always makes pain worse. It really does when people are heavy smokers. And so we're bumping along, I finally had to release her because there was nothing else I could do. She'd been through therapy, and there's this magic date after a surgical intervention, 2 years. It's called the statute of limitations. Okay. One day before the statute of limitations, I get a notice of a malpractice complaint.
Oh.
Yeah. 2 years later. Right. And usually during that 2-year period, the individual is trying to file for Social Security disability. And this is the scenario where these kind of things would come up. And thank God it was rare. But this one was very notable because of how meticulous I was and how, how careful I was in making sure that the informed consent was obtained properly, and then reinforcing it over and over every visit. I don't operate on neck pain and headaches. I operate on pinched nerves and pinched spinal cords. That's what I would tell my folks, Same thing with low back. I'm not here to cure back pain. I'm here to help your leg work better by getting pressure off your nerve. But you got to do your part. You got to do your exercise. You got to lose weight. You got to stop smoking. You got to go to therapy. There's a lot you got to do on your end. And it's like a team. That's why I said it's collaboration at that level. So not everybody wants that. They just think you can wave a magic wand and they're cured. It's like, that's like that guy that said, just fix it, Doc. I'm like, oh, man. You're not a car, bub, Anyway.
All right. So we have root causes of iatrogenic disease.
Yeah, exactly. And then so there is some root cause, and again, informed consent, and also individual free will decision-making. And then in this particular case, if somebody doesn't get their Social Security disability by getting close to 2 years of trying, they usually have retained an attorney. And it's the attorney that plants the seed to file the malpractice suit. Well, you couldn't get money from the government, but let's try to get it from your doctor before the statute of limitation run out.
Wow.
So
here's a stat for you, Daria. In the United States, we have 4.2% of the world's population and 75% of the world's attorneys.
Oh, well, there you go.
And I was married to one of them for 17 years.
Oh my God. Yeah. Oh,
I mean, isn't that crazy? There's 75% of the world. So there's just not enough legitimate work for them to do.
I think that might be part of it.
So they just make work for each other.
That could be. I don't know. I don't want to pick on lawyers too much because
no, they have their place for sure. And there's going to be a lot of otherwise, and I've spoken to many friends who were raised in Europe and other countries. They're like, we don't have this litigation problem
Mhm.
in where, where I grew up in Poland or Italy or Germany or whatever. We don't have these, like, everybody's paranoid about getting sued every day.
Yeah.
We just don't have this in my country. I said, well, here's why. We have way too many attorneys in
Mhm.
the United States. Like that, all the law schools could close for 20 years, and the quality of life in the U.S. would just go up, at least in that way. I mean, and again, I'm not down on lawyers at all.
Mhm. Mhm.
I have, I've worked with many over the years for different reasons, and thankfully I have a great, general attorney who's, is a close friend. But there's just too many of them, and so we have all these, posters on the freeway. Did you get in a car crash? All of this PI stuff and other litigation that has just gotten out of hand.
Yeah, and that's what happened in this particular case. So you could see how many different factors came into play in that situation. Patient expectations, not listening and nodding their head, but not really, soaking up what I was saying over and over again, because it's just like patient needed the surgery. She got better. Her arm got back to normal, but she's telling back pain and headaches. And she'd have been the perfect person for a beamer because it would have helped that sore neck and pain,
Yep.
help her
It's
muscles relax. It might have even helped her sleep and help her depression because
Yep.
depression and pain are so tied together.
They
It's
are.
unbelievable. And
They
so
are.
it's incredible. So knowledge gaps obviously is a part of this as well, where iatrogenesis can come into play.
Yep.
And I didn't get a lot of this in my field because it was so hyper specialized. Even my nurse practitioner, I actually trained him. Everything he knows about neurosurgery, he learned from me. And unfortunately, he was a military veteran, and the
Wow.
VA recruited him away from me after 18
Mm.
years of
Mm.
me help. And the reason I know those were his own words. When
Mm.
he's still the director of the inpatient neurosurgery ward at the Veterans Administration Hospital and in Indianapolis, and the neurosurgery residents training at Indiana University in the neurosurgery program, they rotate through the VA, and he's the one they go on rounds with. And he told them, Dr. Schooler taught me everything I know about neurosurgery.
Mm.
Isn't that wild? And one of the
Excellent.
residents told me that when I was at a conference in Chicago. She walked up to
Yeah.
me and goes, "Are you Dr. Schooler?" I went, "Yeah," because
That's great. All right. So
isn't
we,
that
we, we
hilarious?
just want to make sure we get to this whole presentation. So we
Oh yeah,
probably
yeah.
should
Let's keep going. Yeah,
keep
because we're
keep
gonna.
it moving.
So knowledge gaps, obviously, that could be on so many different levels, and then communication breakdown is the worst. And then look at our vulnerable population, children for sure. What with the things that are happening in school,
Yep.
with teachers telling their kids they're going to transition them, but don't tell your parents. So
Yeah, that's evil. That's totally
a
evil.
lot of this is because of evil intent.
Yep.
Elders, same thing. And again, I give too many examples. I apologize. Chronic disease patients, same thing. Matter of fact, if you have acute pain, it's harder to get narcotics than it is if you're a chronic pain patient because they're just
Hmm.
used to seeing you.
Yes.
Polypharmacy patients. There are people that literally more is always better.
Hmm.
And again, that's something that we have to always try to streamline. And it's not always their fault. It goes
Right.
back to this communication between disciplines. Pregnant individuals, if you haven't had Dr. James Thorpe on, you need to get him on.
Oh, good. Do you know James?
Yes, we're friends.
Oh,
Absolutely.
could you introduce us, please?
I sure will. I will
I,
send
you can
his
make an
number to you.
introduction. I'd love.
Oh,
I'm a big
absolutely.
fan, and I'd love to have him on the show.
Oh, and this would be a wonderful place for him to be able to tell some of his share some of his knowledge and experience in that regard on
Great.
pregnancy. And then
Okay.
integrative care users. As a matter of fact, we have a mutual friend who works in diagnostic imaging, and she had some astonishing observations
Okay.
about what happens to placentas. And I
Hmm.
don't know if she's ready to release the information yet,
Right.
but she could identify which shot was causing what anomaly that she was. Yeah.
Wow.
And I
Wow.
don't want to say any more than that because,
Sure. Sure. No, I get it.
yeah. And then integrative care users, again, I have seen situations where people go to integrative health and they get things like those IV infusions and things,
Yeah.
other treatments, or they come see you and they don't tell their doctor any of it.
Yep.
So they don't tell them what herbs they went on. They don't tell them about what IV therapy they had, and they leave the
Right.
doctor in the dark, so that
Yeah,
they're thinking,
and yeah, they're not always going to know enough to be able to say something intelligent about it. Because, and I just say this from experience, that patients who do, and it's better now than when I started practicing in 1990. It was much worse, where
Mhm.
a lot of patients, doctors were saying, "Don't see that guy. He's dangerous. He's a quack. All that natural stuff is not cool. You
oh
shouldn't
yeah,
do
it's
that. It's
awful.
dangerous." So it's
Mhm.
better now.
Yeah.
But I could count on half of one hand the number of, conventional physicians who would be able to evaluate even anything I was doing, um, and whether it was a problem with what they were doing. I think it's much more common for folks, in my field on the natural side to be trained in contraindications with conventional treatments than the opposite, where conventional physicians are well trained in bad interactions with natural treatments. That's just been my observation. And again, everything is better now than it
Mhm.
was back then, but it's unusual, to be generous, that a physician would even be able to make an educated comment on most of what I was doing.
Right. Then old school bias. My chiropractor colleagues here in town,
Yeah.
they were astonished that I would refer their patients back to them for
I'm sure they
therapy.
were.
They were astonished that
I'm
I
sure
didn't
they were.
just route them over to the hospital and tell them not to go back to the chiropractor. But what I would do is I'd even take it one step further. I would write out a physical therapy prescription for
Yes.
the chiropractor to follow so that
Okay.
they were doing what the patient needed, but
Yeah.
potentially steering clear of another intervention that might have been okay otherwise, but I
Mm.
didn't think would be good. And then what the doctors loved even more was when they got a prescription for that kind of treatment, they could turn it into insurance and actually get paid.
Mm.
And I didn't do it to pad their wallet. I did it just for documentation purposes and making sure our communication lines were clear so that both of us working together were helping that patient get better.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So, and they still to this day, I've been retired since 2014. They
Yep.
still to this day appreciate that.
Oh, I'm sure.
And
Sure.
and I appreciate them because, when you're a surgeon and you, like I said multiple times in different ways already, when you know what surgery can help and what it can't help, and when you've gone as far as you can, but one of the reasons I think I've always been supportive of natural and integrative health is
Yeah.
because you got to start reaching out and making your toolkit bigger. You have to have
Right.
a bigger toolkit, and you have to be able to refer someone for acupuncture and someone for inversion table and that type of thing, decompression therapy, like we were talking
Right.
about earlier. So I didn't totally answer the failed back percentage question, but the failures often come from either a mismatch of treatment and expectation,
Yes.
or possibly two lacks of surgical indication criteria. In other
Okay.
words, every abnormal X-ray gets a surgery. You can't, like one of my
Right.
senior professors at the Cleveland
Right.
Clinic would always say, treat the patient, not the X-ray.
Yes.
You
Well,
know,
that's great. I'm
absolutely.
glad they're teaching that.
Well, they did. I don't know what's happening now.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
but this is how
Yeah.
I was trained, and I'm old school. And I think these are tried and true principles of doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And they
Yep.
shouldn't go out of style because of algorithms.
Yes.
We should be
Yes.
able to train our AI to be ethical.
That's
We
right.
should program in the Hippocratic Oath, you know.
That's right.
But
Well, and that reminds me, I just want to let folks know, and we're speaking to Dr. Daria Schooler right now, on that subject, current state of modern medicine. We have a wonderful another retired surgeon, Dr. Richard Bosshart, who some of you have seen, as I did, on interviewed by Tucker Carlson. An amazing interview. He's going to be on the show June 1st and speaking about this general territory of current state of modern medicine and medical education, because he was a professor as well as a surgeon for 30, 35 years, something like that. So please look for that. We have a pretty epic schedule, folks, coming up. If you go to michaelgaeta.com/MWM, or just go to michaelgaeta.com, go to watch and then podcast, we have an epic, including Dr. Schooler today, lineup of guests. I mean, just stupendous, all the way through, lined up through the end of June. Dr. Bosshart is one notable I wanted to mention, as well as we have Mr. Jan Jakelyak, who is a senior editor at the Epoch Times and the show host of American Leaders, who's interviewed, thousands of thought leaders and prominent, figures around the world. He's going to be on the show in about a month, April 20th. So please be sure to tune into that. And just a little mention, next week we have returning for his fourth appearance on the show, the great Dr. Brian Hooker, who is the Chief Scientific Officer of Children's Health Defense and an author of one of my favorite books that he wrote with Bobby Kennedy, Vax Unvax, Let the Science Speak. So he was last on the show when this book came out, and he has a lot more to share with us, and that's happening next week, March 16th. Do not miss Dr. Brian Hooker. And following, just one more mention, because you mentioned the Beamer, we have coming on the show Dr. Edmund Kwan, author of Let It Flow, which he's a surgeon in New York City, where I grew up. And he wrote a wonderful book on microcirculation called Let It Flow. So he's going to be on in 2 weeks. So we just have a great lineup. You'll see all that on the podcast page. We are packed through June 29th with bunches more or several other guests who are just working out scheduling. You'll also see on the show page our archive and a new thing. And I don't want to boot your share, Daria, because it takes a minute to get it set up again. But you'll see under past guests, we now have many guests with a direct link to their show. So if you wanted to hear, I want to hear Peter McCullough, you have a link directly to that show. Or I want to hear Kevin Jenkins or Polly Tommy from Children's Health Defense, Catherine Layton from Informed Consent Action Network. There are links directly to their show on the past guest page, as well as we've also added to the show page, if you wanted to read the first 2 chapters of my upcoming book on Chinese wormwood, that is available right there on the show page. And our Spotify channel for the podcast is also linked right there. So just a couple of mentions. All of that is at michaelgaeta.com. Then you go to watch and then podcast, and that'll take you to /MWM. So, okay, Daria, let's bring it home here with what you put together.
Yeah, I'm not going to go into the granularity of detail.
That's okay. You can just keep on trucking.
Like here, a scenario, elderly patient with 8 medications, fatigues, falls, confusion. And what would you do? You'd look at the list of meds first and look up the side effects. That's what they need to do instead of running them off to an MRI scan. Check the meds first, check drug levels. This is stuff the emergency room should do. And probably because of liability, they would at least run a CAT scan. But, these things, the teaching points being, look for drug interactions and cascading prescriptions. Like I said, that iatrogenesis imperfecta, giving a drug to treat the complications of another drug instead of stopping the first drug and seeing if something else would work, and then deprescribe. So again, that's what I just said was a deprescribing opportunity.
Yes.
Weaning people off of drugs. And a lot of this stuff, once you get this complicated, you cannot go cold turkey. So
I wonder about that, Zaria. When you were practicing neurosurgery, you had this whole pharmacy background before that.
Right.
Did you catch like wacky prescriptions or bad combos in your surgery patients? Your pharmacy background.
I would definitely review. And if I did have a concern, I'd call the doctor. But I would say by the time people got to me, things were, and based on the history the patient gave me and the medical records sent by the doctor's office, we had to reconcile all that. And if I did suspect something was affecting, as a matter of fact, one case, this is something to be aware of. This is important for everyone. Muscle weakness, in a patient, and especially like if they're a surgery patient of mine. I had one guy who was recovering from surgery, started to develop muscle weakness. Like, what is going on? It was his statin drug. And that was one I caught.
Oh, yeah. Don't get me started.
Oh, yeah. So I called the doctor. I said, hey, look, everything's clean on his scan. I've ruled out anything spinal causing his weakness. And this is classic statin drug side effect. Get him off that crap, you know?
Yes.
I don't know if I said it like that, but that
Yeah,
was
yeah.
the message. Yeah. Of
Yeah, a
course, that's
lot
what
of
I was
harm
thinking.
for no benefit. Yeah.
That definitely risk benefit ratio. Got to look at that. Nutritional interventions, again, high dose supplements. There are people that think some is good, more is better. And all kinds of toxicities can happen. Electrolyte imbalances from taking different mineral supplements or maybe missing certain mineral supplements.
Yes.
And something I didn't get to tell you about when we talked earlier was about pharmacy, about hormones and thyroid in particular.
Yeah.
There are certain drugs like the minerals like calcium, magnesium that will mess up a thyroid level when you go for a blood test. So you have to stop them ahead of time. Right. Or there are other drugs like vitamin D that will interfere with absorption or distribution of your thyroid. So if you have if you want to take vitamin D every day, which everybody should, in my opinion, if they can, and you take thyroid supplement like I do. I take my thyroid in the morning. I don't take any minerals with it. I don't take any vitamin D with it, any fat soluble vitamins. Those are dumped in later in the day or before bedtime. So because I don't want to mess up my thyroid level.
Right. Okay.
And my thyroid burned out from stress probably around 2003. So I've had to do this balancing act for decades now. And so, but that is one take home message from my doctor about the lab testing and about the supplementation. So, and these are the kind of granularity that you don't always get unless you hear it from the hormone prescriber who has the most extensive knowledge about it.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So that's a nice tip that I want to let everybody know about. So just because something's natural doesn't mean it's risk-free. And of course, dose response curves, some is good, more is not always better.
Right.
And then lab monitoring is of importance. Blood levels, check your calcium, check your vitamin D3 level or D25 hydroxy. If you're going to take supplements, make your doctor aware and make sure that at least once a year you get a panel looking at, electrolytes, maybe even the particular minerals you're taking. And even they have different blood panels, like you could do a heavy metal toxicity panel, maybe those kind of things. And luckily, a lot of lab tests and panels, people can actually don't even need a prescription for.
Right. That's true.
Like what Dr. McCullough was talking about a couple of weeks ago when he talked about you can get a COVID spike protein antibody test for $65 or whatever at LabCorp, and you can do that yourself without a prescription. That was not good. See these stupid pop-ups. Oh, there we go. All right.
I'm going to give folks in the chat
go ahead.
a link that they can use to go direct at a discount with any lab test they want to get without a doctor's prescription, which is good in about 45 states. So there you go.
There we go. I'm caught back up. All right. So we finished that lab monitoring. So slide 9 here, case study, herbal and prescription reaction. A real world example is ginkgo.
Oh, yeah.
If I had a patient going to surgery, they had to stop their ginkgo a week ahead of time. Why? Because it can make you bleed more in surgery.
Well, in surgery. Okay. Yeah. So there was a literature review published in Townsend Letter some years ago by a herbalist who's also an industrial chemist, and Kerry Bone, who did a pretty exhaustive literature review and found that ginkgo, including surgery, as well as combinations with anticoagulants like warfarin, did not increase bleeding. There's no evidence for that. And there was a couple of studies suggesting, not thorough confirmation, but a suggestion that it actually might reduce bleeding because of its positive effect on the endothelium, the endothelial glycocalyx, and vascular health in general. So he was careful to be thorough in reviewing the existing literature, and he said it was more of a theoretical contraindication that was really not supported by the evidence.
Well, it actually, I did see some cases where it had a similar effect, like an antiplatelet effect, if somebody didn't stop their supplement. And they were like weepier tissue during surgery,
Right.
similar to what happens when somebody's on aspirin.
Huh.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Well,
I
that's a
think it was
different finding.
affecting
Okay.
platelet function. And now, was it something about the component of the supplement? I do not know.
Yeah, right,
But
right.
and one
Okay.
of the tests I started ordering ahead of time was platelet function studies, to see what the bleeding
Yeah.
time was, to see how
You
their
mean
what was
PT and
that?
INR?
Well, though that is your coagulation proteins.
Yep.
Okay, that always you get that, but
Yep.
also platelet function studies. If I was concerned about that, especially
Oh,
if they were
okay.
on a specific therapy. So there's
Yep.
like the whole clotting cascade. You've got
Right.
the PT and pro time and partial thromboplastin time,
Yes.
PTT, those and the INR, that all has to do with the clotting proteins. But then, are your
Yes.
platelets sticky enough to plug a hole during surgery and after, so you don't get a big bruise? You see? So,
Okay.
and that's where, so when we had someone stop ginkgo for surgery, it was just for a week, and they could resume it like 48 hours after surgery, as long as we know everything's sealed up in there. And
Right.
so it wasn't like a long period of time to go without.
Right.
It. Okay. So that's the thing. It was just a temporary discontinuation or a suspension, temporary suspension. So herbal drug interaction, same thing. There's certain herbs that'll affect drug efficacy. I just heard the most amazing thing about a drug yesterday. My friend Diane, we were talking about my relative that passed away because we all knew each other.
Yes.
And her daughter got pregnant and she was on birth control pills, but she didn't think of this. She was traveling. She had to start antibiotics for like upper respiratory infection, and it reduced the efficacy of the birth control pills. And boom, she's got a baby, and my friend's a grandma now.
Yes.
And
oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, they weren't planning on it, but they got a kid. So that's like I said, when God wants something, He makes it happen. That's the first thing I thought of. So again, disclose supplements. Always keep a list. Be meticulous, because this will help. And the nice thing about going to the doctor now is usually you get sent these history, like to fill all this stuff out ahead of time.
Yes.
So fill in all your supplements, put it all in there, and then you could send it securely to their server. And then when you show up, they have it all right there. It's already plugged in. You don't have to sit there and be digging through a shoebox full of pills in the doctor's office. No, don't do that, because nobody's got time for that anymore. You can do it at home ahead of time.
Yes.
And I found it to be helpful, because like, oh yeah, I probably would have never mentioned that if they didn't ask in that survey ahead of time.
Right.
Like for my dentist office or something. So that's good. And then prescribing Kate. And then this is, I have this really, I think I showed it either on your channel or on the Zoom call that we had with MDCE about the side effect. The guy that had the t-shirt on and said, I took this and then I had to take this. And it was like all this listed all the way down his back. I was trying to find that for this presentation. It's somewhere in like tens of thousands of pictures, but I can't find it right now.
Okay.
But this would have been the place I would have put that slide. Where a side effect is misinterpreted as a new condition, you add another drug, then you get a complication. And this is a pattern that can escalate. And it usually happens when people don't have time, or you're going to different specialists and they're not paying attention to what the other guy's doing. It literally is like that old Far Side cartoon. The right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. Where the one hand is saying, writing on the blackboard, kill the left hand, with the right hand's writing that over and over again. That kind of reminds me of it. Then you have these diagnostic iatrogenesis, over testing for sure. And not necessarily blood tests, but it can be blood tests, but also radiology tests. False positives. This is why things have to be double checked. And if something's way out of line, recheck it, because it could have been a machine error, some equipment malfunction at the lab company, or it could have been, again, like we talked earlier about misfiling, the records getting entry error basically, and you got somebody else's results. And I know that happened a lot with these COVID tests. People were told all kinds of stuff. Oh yeah, you're COVID positive. Oh my God, you need remdesivir. It's like, what are you talking about? My other test was negative. And it was because it was misanalyzed, if you want to say. Incidental omas. Oh, this is a good one. Oh, we spotted a lump on such and such, and it's probably a big nothing burger. But everybody panics because, oh, you might have cancer, and then you get a biopsy and a surgery, and then you have a complication of the surgery when it's like nothing. And sadly, this happens a lot with animals. Does Bentley have any of those little lipomas?
No.
Okay. A lot of dogs, especially bigger dogs, basset hounds can get them. Bigger dogs like labs can get them, Labradors.
Okay.
But they're like literally fatty, subcutaneous fatty lumps. And
Yeah.
the older the dog is, the more they can get. And if
Right.
the veterinarians have the same clinical testing that they do with their hands, just palpation on exam. If it's not fixed to the underlying tissue, it's benign.
Okay.
Just like if you had a little fatty lump or something and you could move it around and it's not
Yes.
tethered to something beneath it,
Right. Right.
then
It's just subcutaneous.
it's subcutaneous, yeah, and or it's in the,
Yep.
that just above the fascia, basically in the subcu, but it's mobile. The tissue is mobile.
Right.
So in other words, it's not tethered to the fascia, and it's not painful and stuck.
Right.
So that you don't need to cut that out.
Right.
Anxiety amplification is because part of that. So this is where, and I had a guy do that. He came to my office. This quick anecdote: elderly gentleman, Medicare would not pay for him to get a carotid ultrasound because he need the risk meet the risk criteria for it, and he was trying to hustle me into ordering a carotid Doppler for him when he wasn't even at my office for anything with his carotid arteries. He was there for like a low back problem. But he was
Right.
anxious. He was anxious and he wanted carotid Dopplers. And it's
Right.
like, pay cash for it. No, he wanted Medicare to pay for it. And Medicare will, insurance has criteria for approving tests. And if you
Right.
don't meet the criteria, you're going to have to pay the bill. So is
Right.
that worth satisfying your anxiety?
Yep.
It'd be different if he had symptoms, if he'd had, transient ischemic attacks like mini strokes or something, they would have gotten a carotid Doppler. And again, this is another cool thing that I think's gotten a lot better because you can get screening tests, coronary artery CT scans, for example, and they could do carotid artery CT scans as well to look for calcium in the vessels that could then trigger a more invasive or a more expensive test. But it would have a justification for it because the calcium was seen on the scan. And that's
Right.
stuff you could pay cash for and it's cheap.
Yep.
So again, looking for these kind of self-care, self-monitoring things. Psychological iatrogen. Oh my God. I'm not going to, we already talked about this. The power of words in medicine.
Oh, it's huge. It's
It
huge.
is. Gaslighting. And like I said, they're going to kill grandma, that kind of thing. There's other examples as well, but labeling effects. The way the things, the big black box caution things. I've had people say, I didn't want to take that because it has this big black box on it. And then you had to get into the weeds with them to explain to them, why we can use it in this case because we're being careful and it won't apply to you because whatever, it's just, I'm being very vague here because it's each case is different. And then nocebo response. And this goes back to patient expectations. They either don't think that something's working, so they stop taking it. And how many times have you seen that with people with Beamer? Oh, I don't feel any different. I'm not spending money on that. It's like, no, you got to use it day in, day out. It's like a toothbrush. You can go without your toothbrush for 6 months, but then you're going to lose a lot of teeth and your gums are going to, you'll get septic from gum disease. Beamer's the same way. But the nocebo response is having your own negative expectation potentially for something and then maybe not participating in the use as opposed to placebo where you believe something like a sugar pill is actually curative. And by the way, clinical studies have shown that placebos are clinically effective in 50% of the people that take them. So your belief of benefit will help. And that's the other thing about, I want to bring it back to Beamer as well, because some people think that the benefit is psychological because you did something. You laid on a mat and you were told it was going to help you relax, then you feel better. But then I said, well, what about horses?
And
they don't have those expectations and they're relaxing right in front of you. You can measure their relaxation and see what physiologically is happening to their autonomic nervous system.
And there's 5 studies in the literature on horses, all showing benefit, and none of it's placebo. Like the horse doesn't know. It feels a blanket on it, and the results have been stupendous. And also with other pets, there's a dog mat coming out in August.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Which is going to be unbelievable. It's going to be huge. Beamer dog line is going to be massive. And this reminds me of and this was a new drug trial. They're going through the phases of clinical trials for a new drug approval. And something happened, I believe it was in Indiana or somewhere in the Midwest, that confounded the research team. Either was hired by the drug company, whatever. They had at this one clinic they had 100% efficacy of the drug.
Hmm.
And they're like, what? Like, this is the only clinic. It was a multi-center study looking at safety, efficacy. You know, these are one of the 3 or 4 phases of clinical trials to get a drug approved. And they're like, what? How is it that every patient showed benefit from this drug only at this one clinic? So the research team, sent a couple of scientists over to this clinic to find out what was going on. And and they just got into the clinic, and they got the permission to kind of shadow the doctor. It was a solo practice, independent clinic, and it wasn't a hospital-based practice. And they got permission to shadow. And what happened? They saw that the doctor, as Bernie Siegel, the other surgeon who's written a lot of books on on healing, the doctor had his desk pushed against the wall so he could just be face to face with the patient without a desk in between them.
Mm-hmm.
And they just watched this guy for day after day, hundreds of patients, and he would sit and explain to the patient what the drug was about. He expressed his confidence that it would help them. He had great rapport with the patient, and it had this astounding effect where,
See?
because of that, he took the time to explain, expressed his confidence, had rapport, that he wasn't just rushing them out in a 5-minute visit.
Mm-hmm.
That the patients really believed, they trusted him, and they believed in what he was suggesting, and they all benefited from this experimental drug, and that was part of this drug trial. So, and I would refer folks to Dr. Larry Dossey. He was a Texas internist, and he wrote a book called Healing Words, which is a beautiful book. And he, brought some scientific rigor to this idea of the placebo effect, but also healing intentions and prayer for people and healing at a distance. And he said all of this has been validated in the scientific literature rigorously. And he wrote a book about it. He was so impressed with what he found. Healing Words, from Larry Dossey.
Oh, absolutely. That the rapport you have, and it's all about the things that you know about and that you teach your other fellow clinicians about in terms
Yeah.
of patient interaction, eye contact, physical contact, and not having a desk barrier. My desk was
Yes.
shoved into the corner.
Oh, there you
Patient
go.
was sitting facing me, so around the corner, so I could literally wheel my chair and do part of the exam right there with them sitting down. I didn't even
Nice.
have to make them get up on the exam table if they didn't
Oh,
need
that's
it.
great.
Like he didn't need carpal tunnel for sure. And I could check
Sure.
knee reflexes and ankle reflexes from a chair. It's just as easy for
Yes.
both of us. And then
Yes.
I was hands on. And this is where I spent extra money because I had a second computer in the room, and my nurse
Okay.
came in and was literally typing in the exam findings as I was relaying them to her.
Oh, wow.
So I didn't have to then take my eyes off the patient
Oh,
and
that's
type
great.
all that in. The only
Yep.
time I did it was at the end when I was typing in my impression and plan and adding
Yep.
comments. Like I
Now
didn't
it's an
give her.
AI transcriptionist.
Yeah, now it's an AI
Yeah.
transcriptionist, but
Yeah.
I was able to come to terms with that. But it did
Yeah.
cost more money to pay that person to be in the room
For
with me
sure.
as opposed to
For
me
sure.
jotting stuff down and then
Yeah.
dictating into a tape recorder later.
Yeah.
So, but that was just a sidebar
Yeah.
of
So,
how I was
Dario,
able
let's
to work on
finish
it.
this deck.
Yeah, yeah, we're almost done. Okay,
Great.
so systems level contributors, fragmented care, we talked about a lot of this. We talked about already. Time constraints, we talked about that. Incentive misalignment, we've had examples of that as well. And then the electronic record burden I ranted about earlier.
Yeah.
Prevention framework. Okay. 4 pillars. We talked about this again. It's the same principles over and over. When at least we have a slide we can refer back to now when folks play this later.
Yes. Yes.
Prevention framework. So you want to look at communication, monitoring, different ways, even phone call follow-ups. It doesn't have to be lab testing.
Yes.
But also encouraging patients to do the type of journaling of their day-to-day situations where they can see
Yep.
if there's a correlation between I did this and
Yep.
then I noticed this.
ADLs. Yeah.
Yeah. Activities, daily living, but also just did this activity trigger this symptom kind of thing.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that's when you can get into de-prescribing and de-escalation. And some of this can get so complicated, it needs to be done in a controlled environment, either in a patient care home or in a hospital, but it
Yes.
can be done. So again, for doctors that might be watching this or clinicians, Medication reconciliation, updating the med list. It's annoying, but you got to do it. And so as a patient, when you go in,
right,
the nurse is in there asking you all these questions about what pills you're on, just sit there and, give her the update, or him,
that's
whoever.
important. That's really
Absolutely.
important.
Hierarchy of evidence. What that means, obviously, is how do you prioritize treat the patient versus the x-ray? And for me as a surgeon, anatomy is everything. So the imaging was crucial. But if I saw a normal MRI and I had a patient with neurologic symptoms, then that put us on a completely different track of how to intervene. Yes. And then informed consent. Another way to say that is shared decision making. And then periodic, for people for long-term care, like my hormonal therapy with thyroid, for example, periodic therapy reassessment.
Yep.
Okay. Integrated practitioners. Okay. We're going to look at cross-referencing supplements. And you're very diligent about doing this, where you say, you have a whole apothecary of herbal remedies that can be prescribed, but you don't want everybody taking the whole store home with them. It's like different issues that people have and different healthcare needs. They all need to be selectively using these type of supplements or herbs. Obviously, everybody could probably benefit from better diet and get natural food in your system, and you wouldn't need to take vitamins and minerals and all that. But in an ideal world, we could do that. But otherwise, we got to be very meticulous. And like you said, check the supplements for their formulations to make sure they're quality products. And then respect pharmacokinetics. Now we're talking about how often does somebody take a drug? And a pharmacokinetic thing would be the whole point of me taking thyroid in the morning and taking my calcium supplement at the end of the day, or my magnesium or whatever, so they don't interfere with each other. Collaborating with prescribing MDs and also collaborating with other clinicians. They could be physical therapists, they could be chiropractors, they could be herbalists, they could be acupuncturists. The people that do the, what is it called? Hands-on massage treatment. It's craniosacral.
Oh, sure.
That's pretty cool stuff. And then lab informed dosing. But, if you go to look up craniosacral therapy, I'm going off on my tangent again. Sorry. In Wikipedia, it's called a quack treatment.
Oh, sure.
It's lymphatic flow. It's not a quack treatment. That's right. I get so mad sometimes. Anyway, lab informed dosing. That's where you're adjusting, like when I get my thyroid level checked, if something's drifting off track, we can adjust the dose so that helped me a lot lose weight, because my thyroid dose became too low for what I needed, and I had to bump it. And when I did, my pants fit again.
Oh, that's great.
It was amazing.
I've had patients who are quite obese, not in a similar case, but folks who are quite obese lose 40 pounds in 2 or 3 months from getting their thyroid adequately replaced. And it can make a huge difference.
It absolutely. And formulation is important there as well, but that's a topic for another talk. So anyway, keeping an updated medication list yourself. Ask what happens if we stop this. And again, a lot of people, we run into compliance problems. Pharmacists see this and doctors see this, where somebody just stops taking a med or changes the way they take it, and they don't give feedback to the physician. And it could lead to problems. So you can have iatrogenic problems caused by the patient's noncompliance.
Right.
Okay. And then, the fragmentation part we talked there as well. Some people doctor shop, and this is where polypharmacy can kick in.
Yep.
So again, just, be personally responsible. I'm emphasizing personal responsibility, self-study, discernment, and then also advising and consenting with your caregivers.
And did you want to still be on slide 8 there, Dari, or did you want to be on a later slide than slide 8?
I'm on 6. I don't know. Did you get stuck? Because
I think we got stuck.
All right. Well, I'm talking about things I was way ahead. The share thing must have failed.
Oh, okay. So all right. So the way to fix that is to stop the share and then reshare.
Okay, let me go over here. And where's share at? Oh, okay. Stop share.
Yep. And then reshare. And
share again.
We've been on slide 8 for quite a while.
Oh, I did not know that. I was zooming through them. I was flipping through them. And all right. Never mind. That's probably when we went back.
Thanks to Karen for pointing that out. Thanks, Karen.
Good job, Karen. Thank you.
Good job, Karen.
Because I'm not even looking at comments. All right. We can fix this real fast. So all albums, iatrogenesis. And we're going to go right down to 8 was the last one, right? So you're sick of looking at
so we want to be on 9 and then beyond.
All right, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, I don't have to click as many selections because we got through half of it already.
Yep.
But wait, hold on. Undo that one. Oh!
So while Dr. Schooler's working on that, just wanted to remind folks that we have a very wonderful course coming up in May with the great Dr. Scott Verzal, who is a world renowned headache expert. We're really delighted to have him. He's a master diagnostician, and the Headache Advantage is coming in May. And so it starts May 5th. Please use your discount code MWM10, MWM10, which is just for our listeners here on the show. And you can get a discount on all of our courses, including this one. And he's going to be looking at the 7 types of headaches, what they mean, and what to do about it. He's an amazing instructor, super smart and knowledgeable, and it's just tremendous. He's really gone deep on this subject. So if you know anybody who has headaches, or if you're seeing patients who have headaches, this is going to be a world-class, top-level, amazing, high-level training on this subject. So that's starting May 5th, the Headache Advantage. And also, while Dr. Schooler is spooling that up, we have coming up our 11th annual practitioner retreat here in Colorado, August 26th to the 30th at michaelgaeta.com/intensive. We have a wonderful group of faculty coming together. You'll eat some of the best organic food and grass-fed beef you've ever had. And it's always a great week together that we do once a year. And if you haven't seen it yet, this is Dr. Schooler's website, which is DariaSchoolerMD.com, which is her practice in doing medical evidence peer review for insurance and legal and scientific research, and she's been amazing at this subject. All right, so Daria, how are we doing with slides 9 and on?
When you were showing, it wouldn't let me open that up when you were showing yours.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no.
Okay, so hold on, give me just a second.
You betcha.
Go back here, and that's okay. Now I know what I did wrong last time. So
sure,
it's like you only get one crack at making your selections, and then you can't.
Sure.
I couldn't unselect stuff, and I don't know.
All right, just
I'm
go
not
right
the
ahead.
Most tech friendly.
That's okay. You're doing fine.
Oh.
All good.
It's getting frozen. Oh, what are you doing here, man? Oh, here we go. Okay, I was able to scroll up. There we go. Sorry. All right, good. Now I'll check. And we're starting with slide 9. All right, this is what we were talking about, herbal. Okay, so I'll just let this hang here for a minute before we move on.
Yep.
And so now I'll go to the next slide again because we talked about all this, but we were stuck on slide 8. And then here the part about iatrogenesis. This is iatrogenesis imperfecta, where you just keep trying to treat the other side effect. And it's easy for people to get in this rut because, it's like go in, get a script, go home, and you can't get the kind of hands-on education like you used to because of time. Everybody's on a time crunch. We rambled on about diagnostic errors and things. So that's that. Psychological, oh boy, we talked about that. Systems level contributors, we talked about that. Fragmented care, prevention framework, 4 pillars, awareness, communication, monitoring, de-prescribing, de-escalation. Then for clinicians, this is where I was emphasizing the medication reconciliation when you go in for a visit. And it does streamline when you get an email from your doctor and they ask you to update your meds in advance. It makes it so much more streamlined when you get to your visit. Okay. And if your doctor offers that service and you're due for like a once yearly checkup or every 6-month checkup for medication monitoring, that is a godsend to have all that updated by the patient before like the day or 2 before their appointment. Then it's all loaded in and then they could just pick up where you left off kind of thing.
Sure.
So evidence hierarchy, again, prioritizing the information and what you need to do with it, on lab tests, x-rays, etc. Shared decision making. again, with the patients and with the other caregivers. Periodic therapy of reassessment is always important. And then we talk about cross-referencing supplements, looking at the pharmacokinetics, like the drug dosing, time of day, so that one drug or herb doesn't interfere with another.
Right.
Okay, so that's really important. Collaborate with prescribing MDs and lab-informed dosing. And then for families, again, keeping updated medication lists, and whether you have a special needs child who's on medications, usually parents are really on the ball about that. But sometimes when you're dealing with a senior family member that's living with you, they still have their own free will, and they're going to be potentially not helping as much as they need to be.
Yes.
Because they want to still make their own. A child doesn't really make their own medical decisions, but a 96-year-old mom can, who's living with it, right? And so it gets more fun then, I guess. But yeah, you keep your list. Ask what happens if we stop this, because some things you could stop a drug and die, or stop a drug and end up with seizures.
Right.
And you die of a epileptic fit. Okay, you don't want that to happen. So yeah, some drugs you don't stop cold turkey. Report new symptoms early, obviously, and and don't shop for drug providers. Settle on someone you trust and work with them and collaborate. And then correcting it. This is where we were about to end up when we found out that I was 10 slides. Okay, so now correcting iatrogenesis. In other words, if you encounter a complication, and again, remember, these are not necessarily intentional. It's just goes with the territory, risks, indications, and alternatives, versus benefits. And when you come across a risk and you maybe anticipate it, then you do a course correction, if you want to call it that.
Right.
So identify, stop or adjust, support the patient's physiology, patient's weight, if they have heart failure, if they have ankle edema, if they have kidney problems, liver problems. And, a good internal medicine doctor can look at a whole patient's body system, and working with you would be wonderful, because you could see it from the entire total body system interaction.
Right.
And you can not fix, but you could support these imbalances in that holistic way, while the prescribing doctor, internal medicine, whatever, is correcting as much as they can with the pharmaceutical side of things.
Right.
Because we're not going to be able to disentangle completely for every human being on the planet the need for prescription medicine from the need for, self-care, herbs and food. And I love Dr. Judy Mikovits. If you haven't had her on.
Oh, yeah. She's been on the show. And Terry, keep going. I'll be right back.
All right. So anyway, here on slide 18, support the physiology. Again, this is sort of a redundant thing. Monitor the recovery. Keep track. And I'm not just saying the doctor monitor recovery, patient monitors recovery as well. And then reflect on how this whole process of healing has come about, and whether there's anything in the system of that doctor-patient relationship, doctor-therapist relationship that will help have a better outcome and experience going forward for everybody. Okay. And then the ethical dimension, non-malfeasance. This means that you are never intentionally, this is the first do no harm principle. And no one, I want to see people prosecuted if they're impacting patient treatments because they have an attitude, a chip on their shoulder. And with I hate to say it, but this diversity, equity, inclusion started leading to some unethical practices. That if a person wasn't part of the protected categories, they were put on the back burner in an emergency room by some student that was too DEI brainwashed. And that's malpractice. And that's malevolent. It could be considered criminal. And unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, this is rare, but we have to realize some people cop attitudes, be they political or whatever. A guy comes in bleeding and he's got a MAGA hat on, and the nurse shoves him in a closet because she doesn't like MAGA. That's just an extreme example. But people get triggered, and I don't know. People in the healthcare industry should be leaving all that at home. And if
I don't know how health got political. I don't know.
I know. Yeah, when they got a chip on their shoulder, and you'll know it. You'll come across these people, and you got to, I can't say this, but you got to slap the woke out of them, because,
for sure.
everybody's red underneath their skin. Okay, we got the same tissues, organs, blood vessels. So, and what someone's political orientation or their personal life preferences are shouldn't interfere with care for that patient.
Right.
Again, my biggest thing is informed consent, and transparency is so important. And I love the transparency I have with Beamer right now as an exhibitor and distributor, is that we have all this wonderful medical evidence we can share, and I can accurately medically answer questions without violating whatever the FDA's restrictions on medical applications of things, because I can speak in terms of anatomy, and it's very transparent. And of course, humility in practice. You could probably rewrite the Hippocratic Oath for just about any discipline. Wouldn't it be great if lawyers had a Hippocratic Oath? And key takeaways: all care has risk. Doing nothing has risk. Okay. Complexity increases unintended effects. Collaboration reduces harm, where everybody's talking to each other and on the same page, and the patients have to be transparent as well. They can't be doing stuff off on the side, like drinking a quart of whiskey a day and not tell their doctor. It's not going to work. And systems thinking matters. In other words, again, not just zeroing in with tunnel vision on just your specialty area.
Right.
Someone came to me with a carpal tunnel. Here we go. The same thing that messed me up. And this is ironic, but you had to know about their medical history, because guess what? Hypothyroidism will unmask carpal tunnel syndrome. So the neurosurgeon has to ask the patient about their thyroid level, and if the doctor didn't pick up on that, and just to cover all the bases. And then here's those evidence references that were for this presentation for Dr. Marty McCurry, Tinetti, Scott.
Yes.
And then medication safety reports from the WHO, public open source. Look for open source information and print something off and take it to your doctor's office. Get it to them ahead of time. Say, I saw this, and this is why I'm concerned about your recommendation. Can you put this in better context for me? Okay. So again, ending this.
Zari, can you just go back to the previous slide just for a moment?
Yeah.
I want to give folks links in the chat.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So there's the first. Well, it's similar. Macari on medical error is there. And also, I'm going to put this, also copy this to our watch page. And let's see, here it is. Yeah. So there's the first, and something he published in BMJ on medical errors. And let's see. Oh, here it is. Yeah. Here it is. Third leading cause of death. Okay, then we have Tinetti. Tinetti potential pitfalls of disease-specific guidelines with patients with multiple conditions. So here's the link to that in the Zoom chat, and it's also going to be on our watch page. And there it is on the watch page. And then you have, these are great articles. Thank you, Zaria, for that. And then we have Scott deprescribing in older folks. Okay, wow, he's been all over this deprescribing thing. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, wow. And then I always encourage people too, when you pull up a science paper like this, scroll down to the references, and you can just open up the Pandora's box of research. You can validate what they're saying in their paper by seeing what evidence they're citing, and make sure those two things jive. And then you can, for further reading and enlightenment, you can study those articles. And this oftentimes is a useful thing to do when you pick a topic and you want to expand on it for a master's thesis. You're standing on the shoulders of other giants. In other words, they've done work, you're doing more work, but now you can help to synthesize what they wrote and maybe add your own insights to it. But that way you're not plagiarizing anybody's work, and you're not getting just the Reader's Digest version from one paper.
That's right. Yes, I'm done with that slide, so you can move on.
Okay. And then medication safety reports, the point I'm going to make too is we used to have something called morbidity and mortality conference
the
every week.
MMWR is still going on.
Yeah, and that needs to continue because if they're not internally confidentially discussing, what happened with one professor's patient and another professor's case and talking about these things, how are you ever going to, I always say it's always best to learn from other people's mistakes.
Yeah, sure, for sure.
And that way you're not making them. And that's the whole point about complication avoidance.
Yeah.
And again, it's usually just because of, it could be something technical, something mechanical, but everybody can learn from each other that way. So just to sum it all up, we're looking at how well-intentioned interventions can unintentionally cause harm. And hopefully we've accomplished our goals talking to this group of people and addressed all those things. And then this is another summary saying, basically looking at this topic and my custom title, if you see anybody else using this, they stole it from me. It is a systems-based educational framework examining the unintended consequences of health interventions across conventional, integrative, pharmaceutical, nutritional, and community care settings. So across the board. While healthcare innovation has dramatically improved survival and quality of life, increasing therapeutic complexity has amplified unintended outcomes, including medication cascades, overdiagnosis, supplement drug interactions, psychological harm, and system fragmentation. So again, that's why I wanted to basically cover the entire spectrum of interested parties. What do they call that? Stakeholders? I think that's one of those business terms. Yeah. Sure, so everybody's a stakeholder. And then there's my Beamer link there. Okay. And then, all right, this is the story I want to tell. That beautiful woman there with blonde hair, that's my cousin Jennifer.
Oh.
And she passed away Friday night.
Oh, no.
And my birthday's today, and she would
happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. I turned 66, and she would have turned 66 on March 1st.
Okay.
So we literally grew up together in the Chicago area, and we were at grandma's every weekend. I mean, we were just thick as thieves because we're the same age.
Wow.
And, all these years later.
Your cousin?
Yeah, this is my first cousin. Her dad and my mom were brother and sisters and this was that's the way to talk about it. Because I remember I was telling you about this is a family from Eastern Europe, Serbia, Croatia, Hungary, that bloodline.
That's right.
So I know we don't look alike. But and this was not that long ago that I was there out visiting her in California before they moved to Idaho. She has been a beautiful soul. And heard it, she died of cancer and it spread all over her body and it spread rapidly. And that's been posted in Facebook. That's common knowledge. So I'm not violating anything. But what broke my heart was I got the call Saturday night and I didn't even know she was sick.
Oh.
And for us to have constantly always been in communication, but like the beginning of the year was busy. I got a Happy New Year text message from her. And then I sent her a couple articles and didn't get any follow-up. But, you could see that she was busy, with her family and stuff because her kids still live in, I think, California.
Okay.
So, and they're adults now too. But apparently the story was that, and I don't have the details on this because I haven't talked to her husband. I haven't talked to her children. And I'm only hearing it third hand from the cousins that got the word from one out in California, then to the one in Tennessee to me. So that's how that happened. But apparently it was like a couple months before this.
Right.
He had the diagnosis and started treatment. And the initial word down the conveyor belt was that she's responding to treatment. So everybody
heard that a lot.
Yeah, everybody's upbeat. Her husband took her to the best doctors, but they didn't call the doctor in the family. That's why I was like,
right.
But anyway, I think this was something God had a hand in this somehow because we always stayed in touch. And I always encourage everybody. I'm helping complete strangers, helping with research. And yet my own family, they forget, it's like out of sight, out of mind.
Prophet in her own land. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was just, I think the way it shook out that I wasn't notified was probably maybe she didn't want the family to worry, and maybe she sensed something was really coming to an end. And actually there is a friend of hers named Willie, who is an actor, colleague of hers. He had more detail than I did because he was able to stay closer.
Okay.
And I forgot Willie's last name. Let me look on Facebook real quick so I can pull that up.
No, that's all right. Not important. That's totally fine.
Yeah, shoot, I can't find it. Willie
No,
Ames.
totally fine.
Willie Aames. If anybody wants to
Yeah.
look him up, you can go to Willie's
Okay.
site because they've been super close for 40 years now,
Hmm.
from like 1980 or so when they were in movies together and stuff. So here was the announcement on her Facebook page.
Oh boy.
Okay,
Yep.
and like I said, just beautiful, beautiful, sweet
Oh
soul.
yeah. Wow. So
And
sorry.
so that's why, if the reason I'm wearing a Ghostbusters t-shirt.
Yep.
Oh, that's another QR code people can scan for me.
Sure.
Okay. But I'm going to
Well,
stop
I'm so
sharing.
sorry for what happened.
And I'm telling you, this was a gut punch like you wouldn't believe.
Yes.
Let me see. Where's the share? I should be able to stop sharing. Oh, there we go. Thank you.
Yeah. You bet.
So that part's done. And that's why the reason I'm wearing this
Yep.
Ghostbusters
Yep.
t-shirt.
There it is.
Yeah. I went to this movie, and I think it was around 1980 when it came out, or
Okay.
early 80s. And
Yes.
it might have been later, but
Right.
I walk in the theater, I'm sitting in, like, got my popcorn, I'm in the front row, and I was with my ex. And this first scene is in the library, and the
Right.
second scene is the psych experiment with Bill Murray.
Okay.
And guess who the Foxy co-ed was? My cousin Jennifer.
Oh, it was. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And she never ever told us what she was working on.
Oh, wow.
And because she never knew if her scene would get cut from a movie,
Oh,
or
right.
if the
Right.
movie would even get distribution.
That's right.
She was one of those full-time working actors in
Sure.
Hollywood, and she did movies. And before she even got into movies, before that, she was in New York. She was on Another World, and she was a
Oh,
character in that for 2 years, I think, and then moved
wow.
back to California to be near her family again. And her first movie was Ghostbusters.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, and then
Okay.
she started landing TV shows, and she played
Yeah.
Gwendolyn for 2 seasons on Charles in Charge. And if you scroll through her
Mm.
whole, if you go to the independent movie
Yep.
IMDb, that
IMDb, yes.
database, you will look at her filmography, and it's phenomenal, and
Oh, wow.
she constantly, and then she did a side project with one of her friends on Paramania. It was called Paramania Podcast, where they
Okay.
talk about haunted houses and things.
Yes.
So, but she was just such a loving, kind, thoughtful, caring person, down to
Mm.
earth, and always stayed that way. And we knew she was special growing up. We all she was like our precious
Yes.
gem, in our family.
Right.
And
Right.
so to not have known even that she was sick, I could have
Right.
rocketed to her everything we know. I wanted to
Yep.
send out the Independent Medical Alliance, imahealth.org
Sure. Sure.
protocols. And I've had people get back to me going, yeah, thanks for sending the protocol. I'm in remission. They can't find my
Wonderful.
cancer. And I was stage 4.
Great.
And it's just like, I didn't do anything. I just shared information.
Sure. Sure.
So, and I could have done that and tried to help her, because apparently that last 2 weeks, it just blew up and took off like wildfire. And that's when
Okay.
Willie, the post I saw on his Facebook page where he was so heartbroken about it, talked about watching her wither away.
Oh,
And
okay.
so this was like just a private suffering for,
Yes.
his, for Jennifer and her family,
Right.
Right.
Oh,
And
boy. Well, so sorry.
so that's why this was a little challenging, and why I was kind of like really flying by the seat of my pants to put
I'm
slides
sure.
together.
Oh,
Sorry.
understandably.
Hence,
Absolutely.
no color or photos or anything fancy.
No, that's all
or
right.
graphics. So I apologize, but
Appreciate it.
getting the content out is probably the most important
Yep.
thing, and
It
the
is.
philosophy behind it.
Appreciate it.
Where we
Yes.
want to keep sticking to these traditional historical principles of taking a good history and being diligent about information sharing.
Yep.
Between
Indeed.
patients, their providers. And that doesn't mean you have to tell your neighbor at Bob Evans' restaurant about your hemorrhoid surgery. Believe me,
Right.
I've heard that before. It's like, that's not going to help anybody. They don't need to know every last little thing that happened. You're like, you're sitting next door trying to eat your, food, and you're hearing some, medical details. That's not necessary. But talk to the people that matter, that you are trying to help you.
That's right. That's right.
So,
well,
I hope that was good for everybody.
Oh, sure was. Thank you. And just I'm just going to play one of the blood flow videos related to the Beamer. If you just, while it's playing, if you just comment as a surgeon, as a physician, why this is a good thing in your estimation.
Yeah, don't hit play yet because I want to give you a little background on this. The first time I saw
Yeah.
this video, it had no narration, and
Yep.
it was at the event where I first got to try Beamer.
Yep.
And the lady that showed it to me showed me this video, and it was in 2017, summer of 2017. And this is it's called the intravital microscopy. It's like
Yep.
$1 million microscope camera video recording
Yes.
inside the body, magnified like 100 power. And
Yep.
she just showed me the video, and because I wasn't quite getting how Beamer worked, I saw it was a sophisticated piece of medical equipment at this
Yep.
expo, but
Yep.
I didn't understand the whole PEMF bit but I did understand energy medicine because I put in spinal cord stimulators. We used electromedicine all the time, TENS units, did EMG testing on all my patients during surgery. So I understood how electricity and the body could interact. So I watched the video. And she showed the beginning and didn't even have this part where it says change function of microcirculation after stimulation, and to show the vasomotion. So the first thing we see come up, and let's see how this is. Oh yeah, the initial condition, slow blood flow.
Yeah.
And this, okay, so on the left side of the screen is a precapillary arteriole with a capillary coming off of it, and individual red blood cells, single file, trying to get through that vessel and deliver oxygen to the tissue. And then on the right side of the screen was a venular vein. So after the Beamer's been running for just 3 minutes, this person with a chronic stress condition, you could see the flow improve. So it's like you have a traffic jam. You go from gridlock on the freeway at rush hour to a traffic jam. You see, now that off ramp's opened up and there's more blood flowing into the tissue, and there's better flow on the right-hand side of the vein. And the other impressive thing is that the white blood cells are now visible on that right side of the screen where they weren't before. And so what I explain to people is when you see those white cells, now that they're big, they're like hefty trash bags that got loaded up when the blood went into the tissue, cleaned out all the waste products, and was hauling them out. But you couldn't see that at the beginning. See, you can't see the white blood cells.
Yep.
So the drainage piece of this, and I think you've emphasized this in previous talks as well, the drainage part of the Beamer effect of stimulating the blood vessels is every bit as mission critical as the supply part, getting the blood flow into the tissue, is helping drain it away.
That's right.
And
so you have better delivery, better drainage.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I used to have really puffy ankles from standing all those years. I still wear clothes, but I could literally get on the Beamer and prop my feet up and watch over 20 minutes my ankles going down like this. Wow. Then I could put my socks on it.
Yes, that's amazing.
Yeah, usually it was a problem with traveling, like airport travel, which I haven't done since 2019.
Yes.
So
thank you. That's great. And I'm just gonna in a minute, I'm just gonna ask you for any final thoughts you have. I just want to remind folks, I put it in the chat, this Wednesday I'll be speaking for Beamer on the Wellness Wednesday, which is open to everybody, on the relationship of sleep to microcirculation and autonomic balance. So that's this Wednesday, and it's free and it's open to the public, and you can just go to beamer-ww for wellnesswednesday.com. And this is the most effective improver of microcirculation of any intervention in the world that I've seen. There's nothing that does what we just saw of any drug, anything natural. There's nothing that does that for our microvascular circulation. So please join us on Wednesday. And that all the information is going to be at 8 o'clock Eastern Time this coming Wednesday for a focus on sleep, which is a very super important subject. Also, one of the organizations that Dr. Schooler is involved with is the Medical Doctors for COVID Ethics International. And I put in the chat the link to their video library, which is amazing. And I was just on Charles Kovessa's show, and he'll be on our show here in a couple of weeks. And so there's the page for that. You just see that in the chat. And then if you go to michaelgaeta.com/PEMF, you can see that video again if you like, and also how to get one. And then a reminder for our course page. We have a pretty epic selection of courses this year. Every month we're going to have a new course, and here's a selection of what we have, or everything we have scheduled so far. And if it's in blue, then it's open for registration, and we have a list of courses that are coming up that just need to be scheduled. So that's all that. And Dr. Schooler, any final thoughts to feel
Uh,
complete for today?
yeah, I think I can wrap things up a little bit as far as people wondering how my brain works.
Yeah,
I want to show you first this painting behind me.
sure.
It's got to be at least as old as I am, and it was painted
Okay.
by my mother.
Oh, wow.
She graduated from the Art Institute of Chicago, and that's my mom's brother, who is Jennifer's dad. So very
Wow.
artistic, creative family. Jennifer's dad actually was a stage actor and
That's a beautiful
a
painting.
director of plays. But this
Hmm.
was hanging at my grandma's house forever and ever, and eventually got handed down to me because mom asked me to be the custodian for all of her artwork. And I
Yes.
have stuff from 1934 until like right before she passed away in 2017. All
Wow.
right. And then the one thing I want to show you as I was thinking about, I looked at that and this just popped up. I got a screenshot of it from like
Hmm.
Facebook or somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And this is when I talk about pattern recognition in nature.
Yeah.
I hope this pops right up. Here it is. On the left, you have the
Oh,
branches of
beautiful.
the pulmonary vessels.
Yes.
We see the same network of branching that
Oh,
happens with our
tree is breathing
microcirculation.
just like the lungs breathe.
Exactly. So the tree is breathing CO2 that our lungs are putting out, and it's got the same branching anatomy out in
Yes.
the open air, and it's
That's
producing the
great.
oxygen that we breathe in.
That's great.
And so just look, I think it's probably because my mom's an artist, but I look
Right.
for patterns, and this is how I see the world. Everything has this three-dimensional spatial orientation for me. And
That's great.
I marvel when I see these similarities. So
Yes. Yes.
anyway, so
Wonderful.
all right, you got to play some music?
I am. Any
Oh,
final
good.
thoughts, Dari, to feel complete or
No, just a deep, deep thank you and gratitude and appreciate prayers for Jennifer Corman's family and
yes.
for her
Yeah.
soul.
That's terrific.
Because I tell you, it's a gut punch for all of us,
Oh, I'm sure.
but her immediate, her brothers, her uh, son, daughter, and husband are
Yes. And what was her last name again?
okay. When we were growing up, her last name was Pesick, Pesick. That's her
Oh,
dad's
okay.
name. And then her mom remarried, and then the stepdad's name got added in, and then that
But
became
her
her
professional
career name.
name that everybody
Yeah,
would know her by. Yeah.
Jennifer Runyon, and then like on that one image, Corman. When she married her husband Todd, um,
Right.
so she's Jennifer Runyon Corman, but she kept the Runyon because that was like her stage name.
Sure.
Because her Pesick name got dropped, from her
Yes.
legal
Yeah.
papers decades and
Right.
decades before she even went into performance,
Right.
acting and everything
Oh,
when she was just
wonderful.
a young girl.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
but and the other sad part about this, and we have a family Facebook chat, and I sent a friendly reminder to everyone that if you haven't thought about this in a while, folks, cancer has not skipped a generation of our family.
That's right.
Both my mom's parents died of metastatic cancer.
Oh, wow.
Jennifer's dad died of metastatic cancer. My mom had a small lung cancer that got knocked out with radiation, and
Hmm.
then it hit Jennifer. And
Oh,
whether
boy.
there's COVID shots in the formula or not, all of us
Right.
have that genetic target painted on our backs. And that's another reason why we need to be more vigilant and try to live more healthy, because with what you and I talked about before with epigenetics, just because we have that in our family doesn't mean it's a death sentence.
Right. It's a
You know,
tendency,
it's a
not a
predisposition.
guarantee.
It's a
Yes.
risk.
Yep.
But there's
That's
ways to
all.
mitigate those risks and
For
not let
sure.
them manifest.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And yeah, I'm just going to put this up just for a moment in Jennifer's honor. This is her IMDb page, which
Oh, beautiful.
I
Thank
put
you.
a link in there. And this is her whole amazing career of all the many roles she had over the years. She was, let's see, a total of 47 appearances in film and TV and all kinds of things. So, as an actress, she was also a producer, and yeah, so she had quite an amazing career, and just blessings to you and your family.
Thank you. Yeah, she was always an angel on earth, so I'm sure that.
Yes, yes,
But all souls need prayers, and
Yep.
for their repose. And also the families need comfort and they need
Yes,
prayers as
for
well.
sure. For
So
sure.
it's
Excellent.
she's missed.
Yeah.
She's missed a lot. So,
Well, yeah, she indeed. Indeed.
yeah.
So, Dr. Daria Schooler, thank you so much, Daria, for being with us today. Thank you for the time and for your amazing work over decades.
And thank you. Sorry, I always like open the fire hose of information. I can't shut up, so I apologize for that.
Oh, no, wonderful. I appreciate all you shared. Thank you.
Thank you,
So for
Doc.
folks who are still here, I'm going to play the piano for you a little bit, and we will see you next week. Looking forward to that again. And thanks to the many folks who have made a contribution to support the show on the show page. You can do that, or just purchase a course or have a consultation. If you haven't had a consult in the last year, it's time. And happy to help with that. Make sure you have a lab review, protocol review, make sure you're on the right track, addressing any issues you may have. So you can find that all at michaelgaeta.com. And when you're there, just go under clinic, and then under clinic, you'll see patients. And then for our courses, you just click on courses. And to make an appointment for a consult, just click on patients under clinic, and then you can schedule a consultation. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Also, just got scheduled to speak on the Maha, Colorado call. It's going to be open to everybody on next Tuesday, the 17th. So that's coming up. And then also, please join us for our monthly Science and Solutions, which will be noon Eastern Time, fourth Thursday every month. This year it'll be on March 26th. And so that's that. All right. Well, if you're still here, thanks for sticking around. And I'm gonna play some music for you. Not quite sure what, but I'll think of something, and we'll dedicate this to Jennifer, who has had a wonderful career and brightened the lives of many. So we'll dedicate this to Jennifer. I think I'm going to play a little Stevie Wonder in Jennifer's honor. And thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Thank you so much. God bless.
Yep. Okay, we have that, and there it is. Okay. Great. Hi. Yeah. Oh,
That is so beautiful. Thank you, doctor.
You bet.
And Bentley.
Yes, Bentley.
I bet he can't wait to get that doggy bed.
Oh yeah, he's
Doggy
gonna
beamer.
love it.
No, what a
Yeah,
sweetheart.
he gets the bee bed in the
Oh
bed.
yeah, absolutely.
But
My
the
dogs
dog
love
bed
it.
is going to be amazing. Yeah,
Absolutely. It better be super duper chew and waterproof.
it is washable
Good.
cover and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, because my dogs shred everything.
Oh, sure.
I'd have
All
to
right.
put
Well,
it.
thanks
Thank
everybody.
you, Doc.
Thanks for being here. We'll see you next week. Blessings to you and yours, and have a great week. All right. Take care.
Thanks.